with the tech, because that wasn't easy for sure. My wish list would be if we could have Zoom on the wall somehow so we could interact and see all the people on Zoom. That was the only thing, so that they can participate as well, you know. But and maybe get some canopies, as Kimmel and I discussed. It was pretty hot out there, but that's really nothing to do with the presentation. But I thought overall, for the first time, it was amazing. It really, truly was. And I'd like to do more of those, actually. But I don't know how I came across and if it sounded okay. So I don't know about that perspective, if somebody could tell me that.
Ellen, you sounded great. The audio for the piano did not come across as well, but you sounded fine.
Thanks, Marge. Okay, that's a good point about the keyboard.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Was Beth Cusack, did she join by Zoom or was she there? I can't really remember everyone who was there now.
She was via Zoom.
Okay, so I was wondering how it was for the folks on Zoom. So it was pretty good, Marge? Is that what you're saying?
When the speaker was speaking, Ellen and the others speaking right into the computer, it was fine. But somehow trying to get the audio from the keyboard into the Zoom account, it broke up a lot.
Yeah. So when the other people and all of us were at the mic saying what our water was for,
it was fine.
That's good.
Yeah.
And I agree with Lynn too. I wished we'd had a big screen where we could see everyone on Zoom, and then have that as a station where everybody, you know, or those who wanted to could go by and chat with them during the social hour or social half hour afterwards.
So I know that's a complex process, right, Alec? Because you have to have a camera on both sides, right?
Yes, but fortunately, there's ways to make it happen. Let me hit on. I think hopefully the piano and Michael's singing got better at the later part of the service, because I think I made a mistake on a mixer and didn't have the right microphone on, and it might have been more of the mic at the lectern podium picking up the piano, which could cause. Zoom likes to try to adjust its audio levels for you, which when it's, you know, like a dozen of us sitting around our computers is a good thing, but when you're trying to do something, it can kind of screw things up. So I think the audio will get better as I practice. And then I also want to be able to have two-way interaction so that people they're live, maybe the speaker at the lectern can see who's on Zoom at that time. And there are ways that can be done, but and if we ever do any evening services as the sun starts going down, we do have an inflatable projection screen and a big projector. We can use that to have the Zoom people there in real life. We also have a big TV bolted to the wall upstairs that's not going to be used for a while, and they do make every flavor of rolling cart you can imagine, whether it be your standard, it's just sitting there in front, to what I call a low boy. That's kind of like a confidence monitor. So the person at the lectern could glance down and see it there beside them. So getting video back to people to be seen there live isn't that difficult to do, but getting their audio to be heard live isn't necessarily difficult to do, but it's difficult to manage, basically because people talk, just like at the end of our little service where people chit chat, it's very easy to talk over one another. So it's not so much a technical coordination to make something like that happen. It's more of a, how do we see people interacting without talking all over each other?
Yeah. Well, you know why I think another reason to think about this now is that I, for one, hope that whenever we do start meeting back in church, that we can incorporate Zoom into our regular common ground services, so those who can't come or who live out of the area can continue to join us. Yes, because that's one of the blessings I think that has come from COVID-19 is the blessing of seeing those faces that were lost to us once they moved. I don't know about y'all, but I'd like us to be able to continue to allow them to be with us.
Absolutely. Like
Figure
specifically,
it out.
Claudia, and then
Stan.
Stan, and then when Patrick's in Colorado, and then there's other people that it is nice to be able to have, and we'll certainly be able to integrate that into real life when we're meeting back in person. So yeah,
And thinking of those even locally for whom it is hard to get
Sure.
to the church now. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see anything, but it reminds me when I did shut-in ministry in my previous life, I burned things to DVD and people could watch things afterwards. And then the older people, we bought little DVD player combos. This was in the 2000s when that was a thing, and they were very cheap and they were able to participate. So there's ways that we can bring people like Mignon once we're able to
Yeah, I'm thinking about her.
access her, figure out the technology for those people to where it's very simple for them to be able to join, and have a screen in the sanctuary that shows their faces, which because we've live streamed to YouTube for when we were back in the building for quite some time now, but
Yeah.
there's no two-way interaction. You can
Right.
hop in and watch it, but no one there at Pathways knows. So
I had the opportunity to meet Ted, Marty, and I went to see Mignon. So we talked to the coordinator there to help her put Zoom on her PC. So hopefully she can join the next time.
Good. Did y'all check through the window or? Good.
Yeah, she was able to open the window, so at least we had real life
that's very
interaction.
that's
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
That's great.
So Franklin and I have been talking, and it's still just in the talking stages, about incorporating at least part of the new member ceremony in a real life situation. I've talked to Liz Gabhart just this morning. She's pretty well quarantined, so she will be giving the message for that week from her home via Zoom, which is probably the great kick in the pants needed to go ahead and make it to where we have a hybrid Zoom Plus service where the people showing up in real life will hear and see the message via Zoom. We didn't have that last Sunday. Everything that was heard was given there at Pathways. So
Oh,
go ahead.
well, see, so you mean for that Sunday to do the new member ceremony, make it a hybrid?
Exactly.
But you would show the common ground service would be on the Zoom for those of us in the sanctuary to do the new member ceremony. Is that what you're talking
Somewhere
about? Something like that?
Pathways. I don't know if we are looking into thinking of potentially having socially distanced, very low attendance events in the building, if that's on our radar, if that can be done, or if we need to continue to focus on outside events, because like you were saying, it's a person-to-person breathe on aerosols in an enclosed space kind of spread. So I feel a lot more comfortable doing outdoor events. Or, I've been to the Kimball Museum because it's massive, and I know the air circulation there is really good because it's got 30-foot ceilings. But being in a small space with other people, and I kind of consider our sanctuary with its low ceilings relatively small space.
That's where the canopies come in. Oh, sorry, Beth.
I was going to say, weather permitting, maybe we could use the gazebo because the new members is a small group.
So I have some concern about ticking off our landlord, but not A whole lot. Our lease did change, and I think it might have had something to do with the art sale because we had some music being played through an amplified speaker. That was added to our lease as a no-no on our last signature. So I don't know, but what are they going to do? Might be one way if we have slightly, that the piano was amplified sound last week. I didn't put out a big speaker for anyone to speak through. So can we do we want to push that boundary? I have reached out to Christy, parks director with the city of Hearst, to see what it takes to get permitting to use city parks. And it turns out it takes nothing. Their pavilion spaces that they usually reserve, that reservation process is not happening. So technically the power that's available in those pavilions will not be available to us. Have they shut off those circuits? I haven't checked. But if we want to use the rest of the park, my understanding is that we can do that, and we can bring speakers. And if there's no power, we can either use someone's car and an inverter to get power, or bring out, I'm sure someone has a generator. My understanding is that we'll be legal if we want to do that. So we'd have to look into a wireless hotspot so we can do a Zoom integration from there. But I think it would be cool to use Mayfair Park, which we sponsor for our cleanup, as a remote service. It's not far away from the church at all. If we scooched under the gazebo or their pavilion area, I don't know if that would be breaking a rule, or if it's more of a if someone else is there, they've got dibs kind of. I don't know what the process of reserving that has meant in the city of Hearst pre-COVID.
That's
But
where the canopies come in too. So at least we could have shade and we could extend it that way.
I think
right?
it was when you mentioned that maybe Pathways needs to invest in one or two of those like 10 by 10 white PVC foldable canopies to be able to continue to do events like this, but have a little shade for people.
Yeah.
I think they're about $200 a piece for the decent ones.
Really? I'd not be that much. We might be able to get a deal this time of year.
Well, so you can go get like the Coleman camping style ones that are kind of rinky dink and will last a season or two and then break. And then there are the nice, you see the white PVC plastic. I only know this because all my market vendors have to have them. So I was discussing one of my guys got a brand new one recently, and we were talking it over yesterday. So,
okay.
Yeah, a decent one's $200. That, like I said, a Coleman camping style one, probably
those are
60
cheaper.
or 80, but you get a good gust when that sucker's gone.
On the other hand, we're not going to use them every weekend like your farmers market folks
Sure.
are. So we might not need as heavy duty a one, but
we need to be able to anchor them though, in case there's a gust of wind and flows away.
Yeah, definitely. There's usually tie down weights, cinder blocks.
So, okay. So someone going to volunteer to investigate that?
I'll get some continued pricing on those, and we'll,
cool.
Franklin, have you talked to anyone that's going to plan on joining? If you've gotten feedback one way or the other yet?
3. I've confirmed with 3, and I'm waiting on 2 more to confirm.
Did they mention, are you talking about in real life meeting or just?
Yes, the in-person. There are 3 that have agreed to the in-person.
Okay, so is that, the 27th service, the message will be given by Liz via Zoom from her home. The new member ceremony will be done live either in front of Pathways or socially distant. I think it should be outside still. What do you think?
Yeah.
I think it'll be just like last week's as far as the setup is concerned, with the addition of, I'm going to have to finagle some way for us there live to see and hear Liz. And that's going to involve a technical violation of our lease. But under the current circumstances, given our near complete lack of use of the building we're paying a fortune for.
Yeah.
I think we should quietly do it and see what happens. I don't think they're going to evict us. I think if we get a note saying never do that again, we'll never do it again. But I think this might be a time where we ask for forgiveness rather than permission.
And then perhaps do a picnic afterwards, either at the park or like we did last time. We brought out some big tables and socially distanced and supported the local
Fun.
businesses there, you know, the restaurants. I thought it was
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, I think we could even advertise it. What do you, Eric, he popped on, you got?
I think that we have some leverage just because of COVID, and also with the other tenants in the space. You know, we have economic benefits to the restaurants when we have people come to the area.
Exactly.
So if there was coordination with where we could even maybe share outdoor space with other churches, but doing it to support the local businesses in the shopping area, I think the landlord would be, I think they would be more reasonable just because of circumstances. You know, more and more restaurants are going outdoors. You know,
I think if we tried to do this every Sunday, we'd get in trouble.
I think so too.
They'd make us stop, but we're not going to do that. You know, I see this, it's going to evolve and it's hard to look forward into the future. But right now I see it maybe once a month, and I see it bouncing between being at Pathways like we did it last week, being at Mayfair Park,
Yeah, I love that idea.
being in other, you know, who knows, you know, being in other locations. So we're not, you know, like I said, doing it every week at Pathways.
Right.
We're doing it maybe at least once a month, because I think, you know, we did 32 people there last week in real life.
And we don't need,
Really
Yeah,
want that to happen.
and you're not going to be using concert speakers, right? I mean, you could just
And I'm just going to bring
plug
out
in, some Bose
one little
speakers.
speaker.
Yeah.
You know, I'm thinking about what I'm going to do to get Liz's video shown to everyone. And I've got some ideas, but I haven't quite hashed it.
Or we could also tell everybody who's got an iPad or a laptop, bring it with them.
And watch it.
Yeah, just independently. And I guess we'd have to use earbuds so we don't have too much speaker
Feedback.
Right. Yeah.
As long as you're mute, as long as everyone's muted, everyone having their little speakers on shouldn't be an issue.
Oh, it won't bother us.
Like
Okay.
it can be weird. Like I was when I was running the PowerPoint slideshow. If I had both my computers unmuted, it was fine, but it was delayed. So the PC that was playing the slideshow had it immediately, and then there was like a half-second delay before it came through Zoom and came out on my Mac. So that was annoying. So people aren't sitting right next to each other. They might faintly hear it in the background, but I don't think that would be a problem. And I could even bring, I could bring a couple iPads in case we need some extras, just because I have them. But
Well,
I
thank you
want
for
to
letting me
have-
join today. I just going to say, I know I'm not part of the board, but I appreciate being able to give some feedback and be a
Yeah,
part of it.
Thank you
anybody-
for being here.
Anybody can come to a board meeting, so it's wonderful to have all of you who are here, I think. But yeah, maybe like that's what we do instead of worrying about getting a TV to broadcast it. Ask everybody coming to bring, or even if they have their phone,
Yeah, bring your own device.
smartphone, to watch that on. But we do this member ceremony.
Okay, we'll plan on that. I'll get the audio so everyone will be able to hear, because that's easy. And then if they want to watch too, they can have their phone muted. Well, yeah, we'll try that. The delays might be weird, but now this is how we learn. They're going to be, I'm not even going to call them mistakes. They're going to be learning experiences in all of these as we move forward. I think everyone is very understanding of that. So, and I think people will enjoy watching it evolve. And as we figure out these pitfalls that we'll get through, it'll just get better and better. So that, I think that gives me a lot of info and gives Franklin and I, and then Liz, a little something to work towards for week after next. I think we're all on the same page for what's going to happen with the next one. And then after that, we can talk about it more in October. I don't think there's really any actionable items as part of that, but thank you for all your input. I'm going to give it a last call for input either on this previous Sunday's hybrid service or any upcoming ones before we move on to the next item on the agenda.
I'd just like to say that the hybrid service really gives us an opportunity to have participation from people who don't do Zoom. So like we had Wally, we had Ellen.
Yeah.
So I think doing this at least once a month is very important to keep those people engaged, because we hadn't seen them in months.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, to me, that's a reason to really go the extra mile to make these hybrid services work. So,
I wonder, yeah, we might even look into, it's all volunteer based, but I'd be happy to. I'm going to be here every Sunday. The way my work schedule goes is I have Sunday, mornings, early afternoons off, period. So I'm going to be around to facilitate this stuff every week. And as we move forward, even if it's a minimal live participation, maybe it would be worth it to have the means of observing what's going on via Zoom outside of Pathways on a very regular basis.
Just a quick technical question. How difficult would it be to take the TV that's upstairs, put it on a mobile stand, just keep it in the foyer, roll it out, hook a computer up to the TV, and have some, little Bose speakers?
Yeah, you're dead on, Eric. We just need to buy a stand.
Roughly how much they cost?
You name it. I think we can get a pretty good one because we don't want it to be finicky. But about $400 is kind of the baseline for when they start seeming real solid. There's a company called, I think it's Avtech, right here in Dallas, that has those. They've got I'll reach out to a former coworker and get some numbers. You can buy cheap brand fancy stands for $5,000 if you want to, but I think an Avtech, about a $400 level, and then pulling that Samsung from upstairs and having it ready. I think that's something that we should look into doing. So I'm going to get some pricing on that stand, on some canopies, on a Wi-Fi hotspot added to. I think I'll talk to Luke and Kimala about, I think it's Spectrum, is that who our internet's through? About getting a wireless hotspot added to our account so we can move some of this remote. And then what was the last thing?
Wireless hotspot. Okay.
Stand, canopy, hotspot. I think that might have been it.
Okay.
And then I'm going to reach out to see if some of our regular campers have one of those nice Honda generators that runs near silent. Because that's not something I think Pathways should buy, because it would be like $800,000, something like that. And we're not, once COVID's over, we will have absolutely no use for it. But I'm sure there's someone, I got a feeling that Mike Morgan's got a real nice generator as part of his camping rig. So I'm going to hit him up. So if we can go to Mayfair, but we're not going to have any juice there, we can still pull something off. So I think that hits everything.
Okay.
So I'll move on to the next item, which is scheduling a speaker to facilitate discussion and decision for action on board/congregational response to racism. That was what the board agreed upon at the June board meeting. So
what are we talking about? Who, how, what, or?
Does anyone remember the backstory from June?
Oh yeah, but what are we discussing? Like who we get to speak, or what's the discussion here?
I think this was a follow-on from some of the items that came up at GA. And so I think at that point, we felt like we needed to discuss it further and figure out what kind of action we need to take. So I don't know, maybe I should have had, Beth is the person who sent me the reminder that this is something we had kind of let go by the wayside. And maybe I should go back to her and have her refresh our memory. That's
I can speak to that a little bit too. Remember the statement on racism that we put into the newsletter and ran for about a month? At the end of it, it says we're going to do something. This isn't just words. We are going to have actions. So Eric convened a group of panelists to discuss racism, and it was excellent. So it's not just what came out of GA, it's also our own board statement on racism that impels us to do the next step. I'm not sure what the next step is, but from the way you framed it, Alec, if you're looking for someone, a speaker, there's an African-American speaker named Estrus Tucker that I know that is very facile at group facilitations and might be a potential speaker. I'm sure there are others. So reframe it one more time for us. What are we trying to decide today?
Scheduling a speaker to facilitate discussion and decision. Okay, so I think that was one statement. And then decision for action upon board/congregational response to racism. So I think it's a two-part item there.
It sounds like to me that we're wanting a speaker that would kind of come to us and kind of give us some suggestions or ideas of what kind of actions we can take as a community in some way, because to go beyond just the statement that we made of wanting to do something.
Or what about, so I haven't looked at it, and I can't take on anything else, but I told you, I know the UUA has already, before all of this happened, recently had a project going on for on white supremacy culture, and part of it was for white people dealing with that, and so we could look into what UUA's already got and how we could incorporate what we could use there at Pathways. But what if we also said one speaker every month is, which I think would be totally appropriate. One speaker a month is speaking towards the issue of somehow of I don't know, Black Lives Matter, dismantling white supremacy culture, all the different pieces of it. What if that was part of our action?
So right now, isn't it Mary McMahon solo selecting speakers? Because Colin was helping, but I assume that he is probably a little tied up right now.
Yeah.
So.
And I know Mary she and I had talked about this a year or two, or year maybe two, about it. And then she told me she had an idea of someone who's at Horizons, I think, to speak on this topic. So she probably has at least one speaker idea. So maybe one thing then is us asking her.
Yeah, I think we just need to take this to Mary. And I did bring it up to Mary a while back of, hey, is this too much for you to do by yourself? But it seems like in this environment, it's actually a lot easier because you don't have to fly someone from California down and put them up in a hotel room and have them speak on a certain Sunday in a certain place. They just hang out in their living room, wherever they're at, and give their Zoom talk. So it seems like the workload's not too much for her. It's just, do we want to give her instruction that a certain number of messages will be on anti-racism, white supremacy, or anything on the laundry list of items related that the UAA has put in their statement / what we've put in our statement.
This is Richard. I'd like to make a comment here, just that I listened to many of the talks at General Assembly, and there were many good sessional talks on racism, and if someone would like to go back and review those, we were originally discussing that it might be good to have one of those as a common ground service at some point.
And is it one of those on the schedule? Is that October, first weekend of October?
First Sunday in October, we'll do the Sunday service, final Sunday service from GA. But I think Richard was probably referring to some of the smaller discussions that went on.
I think there's probably multiple. I think that's a great idea.
Yes. There are many resources there, and talks by very informed, knowledgeable people with very strong opinions, of course.
So could we come out of this, like, maybe I should make a motion that going forward for the rest of the year, I don't know if we'd make it the fiscal year, like through June or through next August, that we have one common ground speaker a month, whether it's a pre-recorded or speaking live via Zoom, be one speaker a month, be on this issue. Could that be one decision we come out of today with?
I like that idea very much. I would like to make a real quick note about years ago when we became a welcoming congregation. We went through an entire year of a program from the UUA to become a welcoming congregation. And I think we had very specific actions and things that we took. We did a fishbowl. There was a great deal. Gene Stockton led this group. Marge, I'm sure you remember. It was pretty intense. And I think we do need to commit a year to taking action every month of somehow, some way to explore this issue.
Would you be willing to look at what UUA has already?
Yes.
Already in motion on that?
Yes.
Great.
So where are the general, the GA session recordings? Are they all available now? So I remember they didn't come out immediately and they delay them for a good while. Richard, would you be so kind as to send me a link specifically?
I will. I have a set of links bookmarked for a number of those talks.
Okay, perfect. I'll grab that and go ahead and save it and upload it.
Sure.
To our Google Drive, and then coordinate with Mary about utilizing at least that one, so that we've got the next item on the agenda is conveniently the upcoming liturgical.
Okay, so should I made that motion? Should we vote on that? Do we need to vote on that to make that kind of decision?
I would second that.
Yeah.
Motion.
Okay.
I really would, because I'd like to
Okay.
see that. To me, that's a start. To start really paying attention to at least once a month to have some input.
But we haven't quite, in my mind, defined what we're going to do once a month. Are we going to devote the message?
Yes, that's what I think we should do. That my motion is that once a month. So this is just a decision for now. We can change it more, but I make a motion that starting with October through next August 2021, one common ground sermon message a month. It addresses the topic of racial injustice, in white supremacy culture, all the different elements in the United States once a month.
Which I second.
All right. Motion's on the floor. All in favor? Aye. Hand
Aye.
aye. All opposed? There are none. Motion so passes. It looks, does the October 4th UUA GA service address that to the point where October is taken care of, or
It does.
that's
Yeah,
my
I've
understanding?
looked at
Okay,
it several
I mean,
times. It does.
I remember Mary told me the whole convention was suffused with that. It was a big part of it.
good, because
this
I want
year.
to keep Mary McMahon in mind. Don't just, oh, by tomorrow you need to have all this. So it looks like October is covered.
October.
November, we can use the pre-recorded video of the link Richard is going to send me, so we don't have, that month is taken care of. And then Mary will look into December, January, so on and so forth, for a monthly speaker to choose that topic as for their message.
Yes, and then I think the second thing we've decided is Beth has agreed to take on looking into what UUA already has in place and give a presentation on what you find at the next board meeting.
Yes.
Cool. And we'll just need to, I just want to make sure to loop in Mary McMahon into all this, so she's not getting people solid on the books in a week that we decide, it needs to be something else. So,
and what I'm thinking, but I don't think we have to talk about it a lot, but may come out of what Beth finds is that something else we probably need, we need is to a committee who wants to work on this topic, at least for the next year. I don't know, there's probably fancy words for that kind of committee, but I figured we can discuss that more at the next board meeting with whatever Beth comes up with. What?
An ad hoc racism committee.
Okay. I think that's what we'll need, but figure we could talk about that more next time. Does that seem reasonable too?
sure. Yeah, we can
Everybody?
add an item on next
We
month.
leave this topic, Alec, I will also reach out to Esther Tucker and see if he's available as a speaker, and if so, recommend him to Mary.
Fantastic.
He's really skilled at facilitating groups and building consensus and doing that kind of group work, more so even probably than just being a speaker on the topic. So if we do get a committee and we do have need to do some process work around this to develop a plan and steps and stuff, he'd be a great facilitator for that. He is an African-American guy. He worked a lot under contract for United Way to do this kind of work all over Tarrant County and with a lot of nonprofit organizations. So I haven't talked to him for a while. I used to know him fairly well. I'll reach out to him and then try to plug him into everything we've been talking about.
Oh, because I could imagine, that's one of the things that we come up with is some group processing work.
And Eric, if any of your friends are interested in speaking, they were all very powerful during y'all's panel discussion. Please extend an invitation. We'd love to have any of them on.
Yeah, I'm certainly willing to kind of help recruit speakers if you guys would like. Kind of my focus, or people I could help recruit, would be to kind of counter the gentrification of Black Lives Matter, which is starting to become an issue, where you kind of have the suburban folks and folks with more means are starting to incorporate the movement and pushing aside some of the original leaders. And so I think it's really important that we keep the voices, let the people who have the most to gain or lose be the predominant people speaking. So I can help recruit people in that regard, as opposed to having the professors who are speaking on behalf of other people, but just kind of get people from the ground up, if that's something the board would find useful.
Absolutely, I think so.
And again, I do think we need a congregational meeting on this issue, but we may not be ready to do that in the fall. Know what to meet on, but I think it needs to be discussed as a congregation.
Well, that nicely ties into the next item on the agenda, which is scheduling an upcoming fall congregational meeting.
Alec, I will volunteer for your committee or whatever it is, to
Oh,
work
super.
work on the
At-
curriculum, so to speak.
You mean the ad hoc
Yeah.
racism?
Mhm.
Well, maybe we need to just set that up today. Is that something we know we need?
Sounds like it.
Do we
Okay.
need a board representative on that committee? I'd imagine in the leadership role. And is anyone interested in being the board liaison to the ad hoc racial injustice committee or whatever?
I would be glad to take that on.
All right. Well, looks like we've got at least 2 members, maybe even 3, if Eric wants to call himself an official member, right here amongst us.
I mean, I'm deeply interested in it. I just know I can't commit to. I'm struggling with what I got to do, but I'll definitely be there.
This is Richard. I would volunteer to work on that too.
Cool.
All right. Okay, well, we need to schedule the upcoming fall congregational meeting with the announcement of the board resignation, Lilybeth's joining the board, Nancy's coming on as secretary, and then the last item on that is strategic goals. So do we, as part of that strategic goals, want to use that where we engage the congregation with this new ad hoc committee on racial injustice, to add people to that committee, to announce, do we want to task this committee that's already formed with a statement that will go out at that time? Maybe I don't know
Or
if they need their own mission
presentation.
statement or an explanation of the purpose of that committee. What is that? What do we see that?
That sounds good to me. To come up with something, a comprehensive idea of where we're headed, goals,
Great.
action items, etc.
Could you elicit some response from the congregation at that time too, or we wouldn't want to say anything?
This is getting deeply into what I'm going to present on the next 2 big issue areas. And I really wanted the fall congregational meeting to ratify the work of the strategic planning committee and the phone survey we're going to do with each member of the congregation, and compiling all those responses from the congregation phone survey, pick 5 goal areas for the next 5-year plan, not to mention keeping them up to speed on all the remodel project. So I had some needs for communicating with the full congregation and getting approval for all of the things that are coming up in my report, as well as some potential changes to bylaws and other things. So beyond the committee we've just created, which is very worthy and great, there's many things that we need to do besides ratifying the new change to the board structure at a fall congregational meeting. I would just suggest that we not have it too soon, because there's some things that have to happen first as far as the strategic planning part.
Great.
You know what?
We should set a date, shouldn't we?
I was also going to say, working on racism is the rest of my life. I mean, it's something that's a lifetime kind of thing forward. It's not something we're going to fix, you know, as we know, even in a year. So we can take time.
Sure.
To work on
Do we
that.
want to say a Sunday in November for this congregational meeting? Is that fall or is that too winter?
I don't think that's too far off, because we're going to have one in May, and that sort of makes a 6-month separation, or close to 6 months.
So we normally have our board meetings on the 2nd Sunday, which would be the 8th of November. Do we want to go with the next Sunday or maybe the Sunday after?
Getting close to Thanksgiving if you go too deep in November.
I have something written on my calendar about a contemplative spiritual practices retreat that weekend. I'm not sure if that's something as Sandy's or why I have that there.
That's you bar you, and it may or may not happen depending on COVID. It's a reschedule for what they were going to do last spring. I'm registered, but I'm not sure it's going to happen. And that's the 6th through the 8th of November, the thing you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, so that interfere with
That
the
would be conflict.
that conflicts with the board meeting, but if we have the congregational meeting the following Sunday, we're in the clear on the
The
15th.
15th? That sounds good.
Yeah.
Unless we need to shift, unless someone on the board or too many people on the board are going to U-Bar-U, and we do need to shift that, in which case we could shift it the week prior to the 1st and still have the congregational meeting on the 15th.
Okay.
I like the 15th or 3rd Sunday of November for the congregational meeting.
Yeah, let's
So
do
I'm
that.
pretty dubious that U-Bar-U thing is going to happen anyway.
I agree. So I don't think we need to take any action on that month's board meeting, but I will, I guess, make a motion that we schedule the fall congregational meeting for November 15th, 2020. Do we want to do that at 11:30? At 11:30 a.m. Do I have a second for that motion?
Second.
Yeah.
Who was that?
I'll second it. I'll second it.
All right, thank you, Lily Bett. All in favor?
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? No.
Hey,
Motion
Did
passed.
we have to make a motion for the ad hoc committee? Or
I don't
can we-
believe so.
Okay.
Steve, do you think that needs to be motioned and seconded and everything?
I think we have consensus of the board members present that we create this committee. So I'm not sure we need a motion, but it's done as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, cool.
Great. Okay, the last item on my portion of the minutes is ITAC, Information Technology and Communications Committee. I think that was headed by Colin and has now been moved over to me, and I don't have any actionable items on that right now. Right now, my focus is the hybrid Zoom Plus meetings, and I think the structure of ITAC will change moving forward, but I'm not exactly clear on what that'll look like at this point. So
If the LDC's next selection for a board member to replace Colin has the skill set that we can slide him in. If not, we need to think about perhaps outsourcing that function of the website maintenance, which is a fairly small job, and it would be a minimal cost, and there's plenty of people that know how to do that, and be analogous to what we do off outsourcing our accounting bookkeeping function. I don't think it's a insoluble problem. It just kind of depends on who we get next and how we want to. It's an important function. It needs to keep happening, but who does it and how we do it is, we don't know enough yet to decide today.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Colin's resignation letter indicate that he was going to continue doing the website?
For now,
For
there
now,
was
yeah.
a caveat.
I think for now we'll let him keep it, because right now it's mainly calendar update, which is fairly simple to do.
My question.
And communications part of ITAC was, it was designed to be a committee to coordinate things, everything from social networking to the website to common means of communicating, technology using TechSoup, and getting software and hardware to just get our message out in an effective and efficient way to everybody. So it's nice to have somebody who's interested and good at that stuff to kind of coordinate that. And that's what the committee was, but we'll see how it functions with Colin having stepped down.
How many people are on that committee?
There's a committee of one at the moment, although Alec assisted on several of the functions, so I don't know if you were ever formally on it with him.
I was not.
It was a
Be
committee.
clear.
Yeah,
So-
it was pretty much Colin, and it is to coordinate not all of our IT necessarily, but our website, web presence, and social media presence, essentially. But I don't see that being an actionable item on the agenda right now. And I don't know, I didn't add this to the agenda and I don't think it's actionable, but there has been a suggestion from the LDC that we leave an interim vacancy on the board so we don't go changing the bylaws again to shrink it down, but we just have a temporary but somewhat long-term vacancy of the 7th member to bring in to truly interested people onto the board position, not just cram someone in there because we have a vacancy, especially since we filled a couple just recently already. I support that idea in this virtual world we're living in right now. I think it's difficult to build the kind of interest we would want to bring into a new board member. And as long as it's not some kind of violation of our bylaws or rules to hold a vacancy like that, I think it's okay. It's a lot of pressure on the LDC to continue to find available board members anyhow. So
There were 2 or 3 bylaws that needed a little language tweaking. Beth Cusack and I discovered that in the process of discovery when we were looking at all the corporate documents and the structural stuff before the strategic planning process. And so we can easily just make the bylaw that states how many board members there are, say, up to 7. Because I don't know that, I think it just says 7, but I've always had it up to a number in other ones, and it could be even a larger number. Doesn't mean you have to have that many, but then you're
gotcha.
set.
I
So
think that's great then.
Fix that real quick.
Okay, I think that handles that, and we've got a representative of the LDC amongst us that can share that with the rest of the team. And with that, my portion of the agenda is complete, and we can move on to Steve, and I will share the document that you sent out yesterday around noon.
Great. Again, my report falls in 3 chunks, 3 sections. The first section rather is the grant-related reports, including the space plan, and since a lot of the grants are funding that.
Steve, forgive me real quick for jumping in. I'm going to drop off. I wanted to join today for Alec's last point that he made. And so if it's okay with everybody, I'll go ahead and depart from the meeting, but I fully support the idea of a vacancy on the board, and I'll communicate that to everyone on the LDC.
Thank you, Eric.
Drop off.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Marge. I think that was Marge. See y'all soon.
Bye.
Adios.
Boy, I know how to clear a room, don't I?
You did.
Yeah, apparently.
They hear development, they think you're going to hit them up for money.
Yeah. Okay, the first section of this, I have been a busy boy. I've been up at Pathways more in the last 2 weeks than I have in months and months and months with the architect, Gary Oliver, who's a consultant for MPI that provided the plan that we've adopted for how to execute our needs requirement for the remodel. He's brought on a MEP, which stands for Mechanical, Electrical, and Plumbing Engineer. Been to the building 2 or 3 times already with him. He has some questions that he's supposed to be formulating an email, and I'll share with you, Alec, when we get them. Kimberly, you could probably answer one pretty quick.
Maybe.
On our utility bill, he can't find a water meter or an electric meter on the outside of the building. Are we paying those costs to the landlord in a kind of a complex-wide share arrangement? Do we just have a portion part of the whole complex's cost, or is it specific to our rented units that they come up with our utility?
Oh, well, we pay City of Hearst directly. That'd be the water, and we have our own electricity account. So,
all right. Well, we'll look into that further. It's a minor point, but we couldn't find the meters on the outside of the building. So I don't know where they hit them, but we'll figure it out.
do you
Couldn't
know,
find
Alex? Does Alec know as the facilities guy?
I've never seen our meters, but I understand that we pay an electric bill and a water bill ourselves. So those,
Yeah, that's
and
all
they're
I know.
paid, they're not paid like to the landlord. They're paid to, I don't know if it's
Yeah.
Encore but
Well, we'll figure that minor detail out.
I guess they're all centrally located.
He also discovered in poking his head up through the ceiling tiles yesterday on the ladder that there's rodents in the attic, and I would like the landlord, if that's their responsibility, to fix that. There was fresh droppings up there, minor ickiness that we encountered in some of the work he was doing yesterday. So the first section of the report sort of notes all the touches, all the steps in the process. We have a signed agreement with Gary Oliver, architect, for drawings. We have drawings. They're in the office now. A PDF of them was sent out in association with this report that Alec has got shared up on the screen. Though the drawings aren't showing right now, you got them in the same email that this came in. Waiting for a MEP report, and when we have that report in hand, along with those drawings, we will be ready to get a contractor. So if you have people that would like to bid on executing the phase 1, phase 2 construction, demolition and construction aspects of this project, now is the time. Let me know who they are, and we'll make sure they're included in bidding on the work. The people that bought, rehabbed, and flipped my house that burned down in 2017 told me some time ago they might be interested, but they couldn't do it without these drawings. So that's sort of what got us on the path of the drawings. And apparently it's fairly typical that contractors don't want to bid on what they don't know enough about. So that's why we've incurred the cost of getting the architectural plans and the MEP report, which is soon to be forthcoming, so that we could get a contractor and move forward. The contractor, as I understand from several people, typically pulls the permits from the city and helps in the negotiation with the landlord. Alec, I think you and I need to closely look at the lease, calling our attention for this purpose specifically to sections 10.1 through 10.4, which have to do with improvements made by the tenants, and what role the landlord has in approving those and receiving indemnifications on liability issues from both pathways and from the contractor that's ultimately selected. So we need to look at that real carefully and have our eyes open when we enter into that. And I do not envision the contractor doing that in isolation. I think somebody from Pathway is probably going to be in those sit-down meetings with the landlord to get that stuff done. That's sort of the last item in the top section of my report. Any questions on the remodel stuff in this section? Well, let me bring up that we have about $50,000 in the budget, plus another $9,100 left over in grants pledged for this purpose. And we have to stay under $50,000 for phase 1, or a bunch of unwanted state requirements for environmental things like sprinkler systems that we don't want or need kick in. So that's why it's done in 2 phases. So
yeah, I think we remember that. You might want to point out the all the architectural drawings ended up costing us a few thousand more than we thought they would. If I understood your thing right, we thought it'd be under 5,000, but it's actually 7,000.
Correct. So I think we need to fully spend out the 2019 NTUC grant that had $4,100 unspent in it. And we spent $1,500 on the Ash and plus Lime consulting group to help build the consensus on what needed to happen with the remodel. So that would take care of that one and go into a little bit the $5,000 allocated from the Live Oak Endowment Grant that was specifically asked for towards the building and the remodel. So we've still got some of that left, and we've got what's in the budget for this year. I've also identified some more grants to go after, and we'll be going after them in the next month or two, because we really need to raise about another $35,000–$40,000 to fully complete phase 2 if we don't go any further into our assets than the 50 grand we've already got budgeted for this year. To finish the whole project, both halves were approximately $50,000. So we need to find somehow, and I hope to help finding grants for them, another $35,000 or so to finish phase 2 costs. We don't have to do them immediately, but if we pause too long between phases, then we have to get permits again. The permits can sit there for a while, but not forever. So there's some timing issues and some funding issues. We're good for phase 1, which is, to remind you, enlarging the sanctuary from currently about 70 to approximately 110 capacity seating, which will push out that wall into the current lobby and require the turning of the staircase to face towards the front door. There's 2 front doors now. One of them will end up in the lobby, and the other one will be to the new narrower lobby. So that's the regulatory, contractual, financial aspects of trying to move this space remodeling project along that we've been dealing with for quite some time, and I hope to be able to make that happen. There'll be some other timing issues, because when they start doing demo and actual construction after we get the contractor, the discussion of hybrid services inside the building will be moot, because we won't be able to be in the building while all that's torn up and going on and being reconstructed. But I'm not sure exactly when that's going to happen, but hopefully sooner rather than later.
And you said these drawings are up at the church now?
The contract or agreement, rather, and the agreement, the signed agreement's been executed. We gave them a retainer and we signed, Alec countersigned, Gary countersigned. We each got an original copy. That's up there. These drawings are also up there. They were on the desk because I don't have a key to the file cabinet. And I sent an email, Kimmel, to you and to Teresa about setting up a file and letting us know where it is that has the agreement and the drawings in it. Plus, all of you board members have these in PDF fashion in the same email that this report came in. There were 2 attachments to that.
So are the drawings big or little?
What?
The drawings at the church, are they just little, paper size? 8.5 by 11 size?
8.5 by 11. There's 2 pages that are as is. There are 2 pages that we just paid him for as the architectural drawings, and then there's 2 more pages that I can't remember what he said they are, but they're 6 pages altogether. And the papers in the office are on 8.5 by 11 paper, and then the PDFs are obviously in file format.
And I've got the drawing shared now. I ran through them a minute ago. I know people.
Yeah, I saw.
It's the as-built. Just what I'm showing now.
Yeah.
Or no, this is the modified.
The first 2 pages are as built. That just basically is like Josiah's, but he wouldn't accept Josiah's. All of them want to do their own thing. So he came over and he measured everything for hours. We were in there with pointers, and that's the first 2 pages. The next 2 pages were hammered out because he initially took some ideas that ended up being early in our process and not where we ended up at the end. So we redid all that, and we got to the point of the next 2 pages are what we are going to do, right? The next 4 pages. And so I'm not an engineer, an architect, or a draftsman, so interpreting and reading them, not wonderful at that, but they're a necessary step in this process, along with the MEP report that will enable us to have contractors bid on the work.
So you're saying the drawings that he's given us, plus once we get the MEP, that's what we need
To get a contractor.
contractor bids.
Contractor will help us with the landlord and the city permits.
Okay.
And then work starts.
And then the blueprints come after that.
No, these are blueprints.
These are the blueprints.
These are it. There aren't any
Oh,
blueprints.
so they don't print them out on those big things anymore.
He has a, whatever you call 17-inch, whatever. He can make
Plotter.
things on the big giant papers that the contractor will probably get a set of those from Gary, because he has a printer that can do them that big, but that's not what we get.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
they
didn't pay for
probably-
those.
What?
Ledger size. He can do them ledger size. if
Yeah,
we need.
those prints end up being real expensive, but we don't need them. We can all just
We do not need that.
watch
Okay.
on the PDF.
Okay.
All righty. Phase 2, nope, I don't want to use that term because that sounds like the remodel project. Section 2 of my report, also kind of lengthy, is on governance and the strategic planning committee, and the fact that we had 3 face-to-face Zoom meetings with the committee and did quite a bit of work. We looked at mission and vision statements from UU churches all over the country. Did kind of an environmental survey of them. Sandy Moore found a bunch of them. We found some other ones on our own. For continuity, not that it couldn't be changed, and we would think that it wouldn't hurt to expand it, but for continuity, at this point, we are suggesting that we leave the mission statement as is, but we add a vision statement that's different than what we have now, which is basically an element of our liturgy where we start each service, and replace that with a prospective vision statement that's forward-looking, aspirational, and is modeled after 1 or 2 of those ones we looked at in our survey. We got some very, very broad general goal areas to work on, figured out, but then we got into some process questions about, like, when does the board need to see this and approve how we're going? When does the congregation need to have better input into this? And so we halted our meetings as a committee and decided instead to do a congregational survey for direct input on the next 5-year plan, to which end you will find the prospective script and draft. We plan to send the question list out in advance so people don't get called cold. They can have already looked at it and thought about their responses, and then we're going to randomize who calls who based on the alphabetic order of the congregation, and there's about 90 names, and there's 6 committee members, so we'll each call about 15, and you get yourself. We have a process to trade them off, but we'll keep it random. We'll keep it anonymous. Whatever they say is anonymous. All the responses are aggregated and worked on and analyzed in toto. Nobody's named as so-and-so said this. We think we get the best data that way. We'll take that information, compile that to help inform the goal areas to work on in the strategic planning process. And that is really the right way to do a long-term strategic plan, and it's certainly the Pathways Congregational Polity Church model way to do it. So we'll work bottom up, we'll get input, and then we'll define some goal areas before we ever get to objectives of how to actualize those goals. Right now we're trying to get to a limited number of goal areas for the next 5 years, and we'll use this survey to do it. So I call your attention to the part below where the questions, the script, and just a tiny bit on the methodology, which I've just kind of described to you, are.
So we tell them what are the current categories, right? And when the member survey's done, we tell
Yeah.
them.
It was a little bit like, remember in the architectural plans, we had the as is and then what we were envisioning for the future. This is a similar analogy. We give them kind of like, what's the current mission? We probably won't change that, but we had a vision, but this is the new vision we think about. These are the 5 action areas of the past 5 years that we got out of the last strategic plan. These are the 5 general ones that we were thinking about. And then we do the survey that may change those 5 general categories. Something new may surface through this survey that we haven't thought about. It may be this racial injustice initiative with the new committee. It could be anything. So nothing is closed. And there's an open-ended question at the end of the questions that we thought of. And that's the process. We'll gather all this, compile it, analyze it, and then bring the results of that to the board. We were also asked to do a slight promo for the September 25th poetry night at the end of our call, so that they didn't call everybody in the congregation and we call everybody in the congregation, see if we couldn't combine those things, which is fine. Luke and I have to fine tune who calls whom, but if you all approve this today, we can start those calls this week.
Hey, can you slide down the questions more slowly?
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
So I can, well, like, okay, good. Like right there. What do you like best? What should pathways? What programs?
I was a little late in getting my presentation together and putting it in your hands. It didn't go out till noon yesterday, but you do have this in email for further review.
Yeah, I just, for everybody here right now. Okay, slide down. Oh, I don't know. Has everybody else had a chance to read them that wants to besides me? I guess. Is anybody else reading the questions like me?
Yes, I'm reading them.
Okay.
Number 8, how could Pathways improve how it manages its finances? This is going out to the congregation.
Oh, okay. I hadn't gotten that far yet.
We had a general goal area, Franklin, about finance.
Okay.
The question that they came up with that seemed to address the topic area of finance was this.
Okay.
You have an alternate wording?
No, I just thought that one stood out because I started thinking if I was answering these questions, I wouldn't know how to answer that one.
Well, I think that's okay because there's probably quite a few people who do think about it. I would not have known anything. I probably still can't answer that. But
I was going to say anyone that answers that has just volunteered to be the treasurer of the board.
yeah,
Or be on the development committee with me, thank you.
I think it's a good question because I think it'll at least if we haven't been thinking about it, it will make me think about it now and at least make me want to find out or be more engaged. Because I feel like that's something that I learned from the inquirers class that it's important for the congregation member to be engaged in that process as well.
Since all these questions, we're going to ask of 90 people if we can. And since all the responses are going to get aggregated and they're anonymous, I think we might get a picture for each question, even if there's a different number of responses for each of the questions. You know what I mean? We'll probably have like maybe 20 people say pass. I have no idea on that one that you just questioned, Franklin. But then we've got maybe 50 people that give us something. So it's probably enough to get a direction, an idea.
Yeah, I like that question.
so that what comes up is truly reflective of the congregation and not just the committee members. What are the I'm ready for the next set of questions. I don't know about anyone else.
Could I ask, did I hear you say that the recipients of this survey will get the questions in advance of the call?
Yes, Ruby, we're going to do a email blast and send this survey out as soon as it's approved in the form that it is being presented today, or with any additions or corrections that y'all want. We'll send an email blast out to everybody and say, well, what is this? You're going to get called by one of the 6 members of our committee. It's part of our 5-year planning process. We want to hear from the congregation. We'll do a little intro to sending this form out to everybody.
And so how much of a time lapse are you planning between the receipt of the questions and?
Well, the only reason I'm impelled to keep it tight between those 2 events is the fact that we agreed with Eric and Jim Moore to help promo the poetry night, which is on the 25th. So if we wait a week in between sending it and starting our calls, we can't really help them. I would think that, 2 or 3 days, send an email, in 2 or 3 days, they might start getting calls.
So it's
that sounds pretty tight.
Well,
a
I
week.
have to, I'm not a good person because I'm on my email all day long, morning, noon, and night. I don't miss, I'm like a hawk on it. Other people's, because of their work schedule or their weather life sort, they don't look at their email but say once a week. So you tell me, how long a gap do you think needs to be between blasting it to everybody to look at and then the call from one of the committee members?
I don't really know, but I would suspect that
I mean,
a week is reasonable.
Yeah.
How soon can this be distributed via email if we approve it right now?
Today or tomorrow.
Well, if we send it out today and give it a week, that's still 5 days prior to the virtual coffee house. So
Right.
I think that would
And
be
if our committee jumps on it and calls their 15 people that week, then it's still going to give some help to the promo of the event.
okay. So you're saying send it out this week, make an announcement at Common Grounds next weekend, and then we start the phone calls Sunday evening or Sunday afternoon? Oh, wait, but that doesn't give anyone time who didn't realize they had the email to think about it.
Read your email, people.
You can't count on that.
Well, and don't we have some members that don't have email access?
Yes, we do.
So
Certainly.
have we
I
put
think-
those
I'll
out?
put it in the newsletter about the whole thing. So then they will at least have the newsletter on Friday. They will have an announcement next Common Ground. They will have got an email blast about it. And through those 3 methods, our hope is that most people will be aware when we call them.
Well, I was going to ask, is there anyone that we know is not electronically connected at all?
Yeah, there are some people who are not.
Those people, we could, if we put it in the mail on Monday or Tuesday, they should, or even maybe drop them off if they're
Give me a
local.
list of who I have to mail it to. I'll do it. I don't know who they are or what.
But I think that once we make the call, I think that take care of that problem, because the people who haven't seen, if we have to call them back, maybe when we make the call, that's making them aware of it, and then they'll go and check their email. We might just not have their data in time for the 25th, but we can still get the data that we need from them. Because maybe once the call, they get the call, then they'll go look at the email and respond.
Oh, yeah.
To it.
We'll call it back.
There are folks with no email at all, right, Ruby?
Yeah.
My experience has said that there are folks without email or without access to their emails. And
So we
there are
can read their
people, there are a number of people who don't check their emails at all or very infrequently, and they depend on texting.
Well, they might get a cold call survey call from one of the committee without the warning or the time to prepare or read the question ahead of time. And that's unfortunate, but I don't think we can drive the timing of the whole event based on 5 people or less.
No, but you're just saying we could add a text blast, right?
No, if I can jump in real quick, this is too long to send out via text. You're limited to like 179 characters in the text message. But
No,
what we
no.
could, what I
I
see
mean, couldn't a
being
text
able to
say, look
happen,
at your,
if I
look at
could,
your,
Wait.
yeah,
if
sorry.
I could,
If they don't do email,
I
they're not
could-
going to do text.
if I could. So the first call, the limitation on timeline is to get the September 25th poetry night promoted. So if people read their email and they're able to prepare for answering the questions, that's fantastic, and we're able to promote the coffee night or poetry night rather. If they don't have access or they haven't reviewed it, then we have the opportunity to ask them if they would like to have it either physically mailed to them or be made aware, and then we'll be able to get a list of people who aren't available via email, which would be valuable to have. And at that point, would the people making the calls be willing to make a second call to the people that haven't been able to prepare themselves? So they're able to get the hard copy via mail or a drop off or however we get it to them. We're able to compile a list of people that would otherwise fall through the cracks on these communications. And then we reach out a second time and actually give them the survey. Is that a feasible solution,
That
Steve?
sounds doable. I don't think too much. I don't think that's going to be very many people, but
I agree.
I'm willing to do it.
I agree. So when we make the initial call, it's to say, hey, we're having poetry night on September 25th. Make sure to join if you can. Did you receive the email and have you reviewed the questions? If it's a yes, then you proceed and it's over with. If it's a no, would you like this mailed or dropped off so you can review it to have a second discussion in a week? And then we're able to take down those names and know people that aren't electronically savvy or don't care about email, and then we know to not expect responses to things via that. And then we can, if they're a text message person, we can utilize that to communicate certain things, not surveys necessarily, but it's still just good data to have.
Yeah, that would be good to know.
I think that's good. I think we'll get a lot of good information from doing it that way as well, because then we really identify the people who are not receiving the information anyway.
I have a quick question.
Lilybeth, sure.
Stephen, Stephen, you're going to contact 90 people, is that correct?
That's approximate number of members. Is I have a list, Luke has a list out of Breeze. We're reconciling them, but yeah.
The question I have, do you have a number in mind for completed people that out of 90, if you don't contact 90 people, you could have maybe 80 or 75 or whatever. Do you have a number in which you accept that you've got a good, a bottom number, a lower number than 90 that you would say is acceptable for response?
Well, given that we were proceeding as a committee with no input whatsoever, I would be happy with whatever we get. No, I don't have a bottom lower number to say this is over, let's not do a 5-year plan. I just think it's making our best effort to get full participation in the process from everybody. Hopefully, if we're good at it and fairly persistent, I would expect that most people would be willing to share their thoughts.
Okay.
I have one comment about the question about pathways being lay-led. I hear people all the time talking about how they love the fact that pathways is lay-led, but I don't know if people understand what we're doing by not having professional leadership.
Isn't that in the question? Doesn't it say that in 5 years, would you like to have a minister?
Well, but I don't know if people even understand what we're missing by not having professional leadership. That's my point. Everyone says, "Yay, no minister! We don't have to pay a minister. We don't have to worry about the minister telling us what to do, etc." A lot of those people don't volunteer to do very much and don't really understand what a professional would do for us. So I'm just saying that question seems to be a little bit loaded to me, and that I don't know. I just want to make sure people understand what we're missing by not having a minister. So
do you think we could do that with with some addition to that question? Maybe adding something to it, or is
I'll be interested in what people respond with. I think when people go, "Oh, we're lay-led," I love it. They see that as we don't have the same person in the pulpit every Sunday giving the same message.
There's a lot more that a minister does besides fill the pulpit.
Yes, but I think that's what I
totally
mean
get it.
in that when people say that's what they like, that's what they mean. They don't like having a preacher that gives the message every week, but they might be more open to the idea of someone along the lines of an executive minister who's more behind the scenes doing the work of the church outside of the pulpit. I think if we were to evolve over time into a not necessarily lay-led congregation, the people that go, "Oh, we're lay-led, I love that," would actually like some paid executive leadership, but as long as we retain the freedom of the pulpit that we really embrace. So I think that question, I don't see it as loaded, but I hope as people answer it, they maybe hear an answer along the lines of what I've just said, that I love Pathways because we don't have the same pastor giving the message every week. However, I recognize that at some point, especially as the church grows, there might be need to have some ministerial staff to do the nuts and bolts work, but while maintaining, the variety of speakers we have from week to week.
So should we change that question a little bit though and say Pathways is lay-led? Something like what does being a lay-led congregation mean to you? And then change the
How about
wording.
if we change it to volunteer-led instead of lay-led? Does that make it clearer?
But that at least brings out the idea that there's some responsibility behind being lay-led. It means there's work for everyone who joins.
You might word it volunteer lay-led congregation. Keep the lay-led in there, but put volunteer in front of that.
And I also think add something that along what Alec's talking about, that there are different kinds of paid staff to have, or different kinds of ministers. There's not just one who's in the pulpit, but there is. I didn't know you could have just an executive minister myself.
Well, I mean, even if you have a minister, they don't preach every Sunday. I mean, in any Unitarian church, they take off one Sunday a month. They're not there. So you still are recruiting other types of services at least once a month, and often more often than that.
And you can have ministers whose focus is a support too, right? Or pastoral counseling, or some of the things that our committee does. I can't remember the name right now.
Care team. Care team,
yeah.
Nancy, I for one would, and this may not be the right place for it, but I'd love to have you tell me what you see that what's the good part, and what, the pros and cons somewhere. Maybe just a discussion between us, or something in writing, or a link to something,
Sure, I'll work on that. I just think it's really exhausting for a few people running a church without professional leadership. Mm-hmm. And maybe everybody else doesn't think it's exhausting, but I just think there's so much for all of us here, to do all the time, because we don't have a minister, and we don't have, I think of, churches that have a minister, a lot of the stuff is done for them that we have to do. And I don't know.
I hear what you're saying, though I'm not on the board, but I do hear, and I feel that uh, folks probably are, or if they're not, they will be, because there is so much to be done. But I personally, I didn't connect that to the minister. I'm not a person who has been involved in churches all my life. I haven't been involved. I may have attended, but I was not involved until Pathways. So I don't know what else ministers do.
At this point, I've inserted the word volunteer/lay-led to this question, and that's the revision I've made at this point. I'm not sure that the explication of what having a minister fully means can be easily jammed into this question in the survey, although it would, we have 5 years to work it out, because this is talking about at the end of the next 5 years, would you be interested in thinking that we were ready to have a minister? So can we proceed? Because this is, I'm the second presenter of a whole tableau, and we've already been here for an hour, 2 hours and 15 minutes, or I don't know, a long time.
We sure have.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's
There's
many
a lot
more
to
to
talk
go.
I think the question is fine adding volunteer. I'm interested to see how people respond to it. I think as we've all talked, as Ruby just brought up, there is not a lot of people understand what ministerial staff can do behind the scenes. They think of preacher, pulpit, sermons on Sundays, when that's not necessarily the case. But I think starting with this question, we can start to expand on what the reality is of paid church staff, whether it be ministerial or administrative. And I do definitely see us moving, as we grow, we're going to need to hire staff.
Yeah.
I see the beauty of Pathways, and this is just me personally, in not having a senior minister, a senior pastor. It gets away from the cult of personalities kind of issues. I actually had a very frank discussion with Reverend Cantor at First Unitarian once about that very thing, which I don't think he took too kindly to. But I know Pathways loves the fact that we don't have that guy or that woman that's our preacher, our pastor. We're Pathways, we're a family. But at the same time, I could see people embracing the idea of, oh, we do have someone that we pay to kind of make sure everything's taken care of. And that is not all laid out upon the Board of Trustees at some point in the future. We'll just have to strongly define the difference between a senior pastor and what that ministerial staff person's responsibilities would look like. I see that being question or proposed category for 2021-2025 goal setting, strengthen Pathways leadership and what that can look like. I would hope it would be a full-time paid staff member, because that's how you can't go fire a board member because there's no concern in losing livelihood. There's an element of responsibility in a paid staff member that you just can't get from us volunteers, obviously. And as the church grows, I would hope that we get to the point where we get someone in a position like that. But I'll be interested in seeing what kind of answers that question elicits.
Do we have your blessing to proceed with this survey and the way it's been described, and with the one edit to that question?
I like it.
It sounds like you might need to edit the script a little bit too, to reflect what Alec was saying about, do you have it? How do you want to get it? Have you had time to think about it, or do you want me to call you back? If you want us all to go by, the same script, which I'm fine with. But other than that.
Yeah, with the new methodology of how we're going to promote this and tell people it's coming and all that, we will tweak the intro script.
Okay.
All right, can I go on to the third chunk of my report and be done and let it pass to the next person?
Okay.
We have been informed by the city of Hearst that they've reopened some of their volunteer programs, including Adopt a Park We have Mayfair Park as Pathways longtime adopt-a-park site. They've changed all of their paperwork because of COVID, so we have all new forms to indemnify the city of Hearst. And so I'm looking for somebody that has an interest in the park cleanup project. We're supposed to do it 3 months a year. We get to pick the months. We haven't picked them yet. I don't know who would like to kind of honcho that. I'm the interface between the city of Hearst and this activity for Pathways, simply because it used to be Stan's and I took over some of his stuff in terms of community outreach. I don't mind going to help, but I'm like somebody that has a passion for this. And there is a notebook at the office that supposedly has the names of people that used to do it. So we know some people to talk up to about re-upping, and just have to have them fill out the paperwork. You know, I've heard it talked about that maybe the scouts might take it on. There's some issues possibly with parental presence, with are they legal to indemnify the city at that age? We'll have to work through those issues, but this is just a heads up. We're back into the park cleanup, and I'm looking for anybody that's worked on that before to help me get that rolling. The second thing, and you can approach me offline about that, just send me an email. I do watch my emails, or a text, which I will reluctantly read, or even phone call. The second thing is to mention that the next quarter is fast upon us, and that we have an outreach partner approved at the congregational meeting on May 17th, which was to have an in-reach for Pathways. And I propose that we use funds for that quarter that are gathered towards funding phase 2 of the remodel project. So the suggestion of how the funds might be framed in terms of the request and how they might be allocated once they're received, that's an issue for discussion. The fact that it's already slated to be Pathways in reach for that quarter has been approved prior. So what do you think?
Sounds good to me.
Like a good way to kick it off, fundraising for the phase 2.
Okay, then that helps, because I have to prepare a blurb for the newsletter in advance of the next quarter, so we know what we're doing. And if I can say that the InReach program will generate funds solely for Pathways use, and that it will be applied to the remodeling costs to fully complete the project or complete phase 2, that helps me get the piece in my head and know that it's okay with the board to frame it that way when we put it in the newsletter and let the congregation know about it. Last, probably least, is the issue about the fact that we didn't follow our own bylaws and fully publishing in 14 days ahead of time from the May 17th meeting, the member list, so that people could say, I'm not on it, why am I not on it, could challenge the published list, was deemed in consultation with Southern Region UUA's office to be non-material, based on the fact that we had well over a quorum, no vote had any opposition, every vote taken was unanimous, and therefore this procedural shortcoming was deemed immaterial. Don't worry about it. We'll just do better when we do our next congregational meeting. So that's the outcome of that. You asked me last month, I volunteered to talk to them about it, make sure it didn't do anything worse than what we thought it did, and it didn't, so we're good. And this ends my report. I appreciate your patience.
Thank you, Stephen. One little note on that last part. In the fall congregational meeting, I assume if we have any votes, we'll need to have this posted. Will it be, can we publish that in the newsletter? Can we put a link on the website? How do we see in this digital era of fulfilling bylaw requirements, not making that same mistake again?
I think that's a executive committee issue of how to do it, but we just know we didn't do it last time, so we need to. Secretary's involved in that. I'm working with Luke to get a clean membership list. He's got what he got out of Breeze. I've got what I had gotten and was tracking for the development committee. It's one of the 3 data sets we've tried to keep track of. We'll figure out who the members are and how to publish this 14 days ahead of the middle of November when we're going to have the meeting. But probably not solve that issue today, but I appreciate you bringing it up.
Okay, no problem.
Well, maybe what we're doing with the survey, we'll know who doesn't have email. I guess we
Yeah, it'll make it even better. Yeah.
post it to email and then mail it to the people who don't have email.
Yeah, I think that survey is going to end up answering a couple really important questions for us outside of the survey itself.
It may even be a care team or a new ministry kind of thing to help people bridge a digital divide. If they're on the wrong side of the digital divide and want to have something, maybe we can figure out a way to provide some equipment, train them on how to use it, get them more plugged in if they want to be, or if not, at least accommodate their not doing it that way.
At least they'll know that we're interested in how we can.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. On to Kimala. Floor is yours.
Yes. So this was the first time for me to do the financial report by myself, and I made a mistake. I didn't communicate well with our bookkeeper, and so I'm not able to have the report ready today. I will send it to you as soon as I get it ready for August, and at next month's meeting, I will formally present August and September. Unless you want to fire me.
Nope.
No, we don't. Remember, you had some outstanding items from the prior month that because Luke fell off the debit card, so be sure you capture that stuff in your August one.
Yeah, I know. We will be capturing it in the August. So yeah, all of that stuff will be taken care of. The notification or whatever we call it to take Luke and Marge off of the checking account has been sent in. We're waiting for her to send signature cards back, and
I think I said I didn't get it, but Alec just sent an email that he did get it. So there's probably one card and he's got it.
No,
Maybe.
there's more stuff to sign and send to her. So
Thanks. I didn't know. I just knew I didn't have the card.
I'd sent yet another email to, I think, the three of us. But we can talk about it. Now, Kimball, you're going up to the building later, right?
Yeah.
I'll meet you up there. We can sign what's needed, and I can go to Steve. And we can
That
hopefully
sounds
be done.
great.
It does have Becky's name on it for some reason.
Well, actually, that was the other thing. She was on the account. So now that she's resigned, we'll need to remove her and then decide, do we need more than 3 people to be on the account? Do we need the secretary?
We can look at it.
I think we could look at that. What?
I just said I don't think I need to be on the account.
Yeah, I think we
Okay.
can just have the signature spot for Becky struck.
Well, I guess what we'll do for next month is I'll prepare the same sort of resolution. Just all it'll be is to remove her. Or I can ask Delene if that's needed.
We can. I'll meet you at the church.
That's going to slow it way down. I suggest if we're going to do that, we make a motion now to pass a board resolution that's identical to the last one, but removes Becky. Then it's in these minutes because the bank should need these minutes to do the resolution. So let's just I make a motion that we strike Becky's name from the prior board resolution to amend the bank signature card. Anyone second that?
Wait, you're striking her name from the board resolution?
from the signature card, I said.
Okay.
And we're amending the prior board resolution with a new board resolution that does that. But we need to take that vote today so that the minutes for this meeting reflect that, so that otherwise it puts another month in the process.
And that means I still we type up another resolution though that gets signed? Or we amend, because if we amend the previous.
It's a new resolution because there's yet another change. So yes, it's a new resolution. I have the form. All it has to do is just take that name out.
Oh, I can do that off of the, unless you want to do it right this minute. Otherwise, I can do that.
I think we take the board vote to create a new resolution that removes Becky's name from this bank signature card. And I've made that motion, and I'm looking for a second.
I'll second.
All, Alec, call for the vote.
All in favor? Pardon, Nancy?
I'm
Nancy,
sorry, I was asking who seconded it. I missed.
Oh,
Alex.
I did. And okay, call for all in favor. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? There are none. Motion so passes. So hopefully we can fill out this existing paperwork, send it in, send the minutes stating that we just voted that Becky's to be removed for that, and this paperwork will still be good, and she won't have to send this back out for us to all sign again and send back to her. She can just strike Becky from this, and we can move forward.
I think the minutes that state that we passed this resolution by a unanimous vote today, that should satisfy the bank officer. It always did when I used to do this.
Yeah. If she was already a signatory and needed to sign this to get off, that might be a problem, but I don't read this as that. But Kimberly, you and I can look this over in more detail here in a little while at the building.
Okay.
And then I'll run to Steve. We should be able to get it all signed off on. I'll mail it to her, and then I'll call her Monday and say, hey, we've sent that to you, but we're not adding the fourth signatory. Here's a link to the board minutes where we've removed her. Can you strike that and use the existing paperwork? And I think we'll be good with that.
Awesome. Okay. And then the second thing is we have a proposal for investment that Richard is going to discuss, and I would like to, well, unless you want to, Alec, because you have it, share with everyone while he talks. Oh, if you think you did, because I sent it out right before church, so you probably didn't have time to look at it.
Yeah, no, I've got it. I just pulled it up on my iPad that I'm
so
not sharing for.
Thank you.
But I'll grab it.
Okay. Close. There we go.
Or if you want, I could share it from my screen.
I think I've about got, or yeah, if you want to go ahead, Richard, so you can follow along as you're reading instead of me just trying to guess what you're about to say.
Yeah, okay. Well, first of all, thanks for inviting me to the meeting. And I have some inputs for the board that might be useful. So this proposal is, it's about the savings at Pathways. The Pathways has a savings account at Frost Bank, and it's earning just a very tiny amount of interest. So I would like to propose that we do something better with the money by investing it in a mutual fund. So that's the subject of the proposal. So I'll try to share the screen here now.
Yeah.
Okay, so are you seeing the proposal on your screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, well, so the situation is that I'm proposing some mutual funds which will provide hopefully a better rate of return on our investment. And there's various kinds of mutual funds, as you probably know. So they run a spectrum from being very conservative to being very aggressive. And I have picked out two mutual funds as an example. And these are both relatively conservative mutual funds. So these two examples we can talk about, and but that does not rule out other funds. We could consider other funds too. Now, one fund here is a short-term bond fund, and that is like ultra conservative. And it now also there's another fund here, one that's called the Wellesley Income Fund, and that includes a fairly percentage of stocks in the fund. So that makes it a little bit more aggressive. Now, as a general rule, mutual funds are characterized both by their the rate of return and by their amount of fluctuation. And it just generally works out that the higher the rate of return in a fund, then the greater amount of fluctuation. So now most people are kind of leery about a fund that has fluctuations, so that the way it usually works when you're considering a mutual fund to invest in, you first check to see if the amount of fluctuation is going to be in your comfort zone. And if it is, then you check to see if the return is going to be high enough. So now with that in mind, I would like to draw your attention to these graphs here. Now this this bond fund, this is its history over the last 15 years. And this gives you a general idea of the sort of fund that it is. You can see that the amount of return per year varies, but at no time does it go negative. Now, I should say that past performance is not a guarantee of future results. So this is not necessarily going to repeat itself in the future. We cannot predict the future, but still it's good for comparing one fund with another. So now this Wellesley fund, the one that has stocks in it, you can see that it's, sometimes it even goes negative. This was in the year 2008. It went down by nearly 10%. And even recently, it did have a small negative year. So with that in mind, we can also fast forward. Here is a graph showing how an investment of $10,000 starting in 2010. In this bond fund, it gradually grew and it ended up around $12,000. And the Wellesley fund, over the same time, it grew quite a lot more. But as you can see, it has some major fluctuations along the way. This particular event, this happened earlier in this year. And this is when it dropped by about 8%. So these two examples give you some idea of what's available. So one thing that is important, like I was talking about, the fluctuations, is to sort of gauge your tolerance to these fluctuations, to gauge that in advance. And if you can figure that some of these fluctuations are too much for comfort, then we should not invest in them in the first place. We should get something that's less likely to fluctuate. So because the excuse me, the worst thing that could happen is if we would buy into some fund like this, and then we get to a point like that where it drops by 8%. At that point, you don't know what the future is. You don't know if it's going to go up or down or whatever. And if you get so worried that you want to sell the fund, well, then that could be a losing proposition. So that's sort of why we need to sort of be aware of this sort of thing to start with. So here's just a few more miscellaneous facts. That bond fund, if you average the return over the last 5 years, it comes out to that much. And this Wellesley fund would come out to be that much, quite a bit more. So that illustrates like the risk and the reward that you can get. And then finally, here's some numbers showing that in the savings account, we currently have about 121K, and we do need to reserve some of that for the remodeling and for general purposes. So the amount available would be around 50,000. So that's basically the way that I'm presenting this. Do you have any questions?
I have several. Thank you for bringing this idea up, because it's always bothered me that savings account pay 0.1% or something, or 0.01% interest. So in general, I'm okay with the concept of earning a little more on our money that we're not currently needing. Here's my questions in order. Just to get this off the table, you have no financial interest in either of these products or in anything that we would do in this regard, right? This is just informational on your part?
Oh, yes, that's right. Yeah, I'm doing this strictly as a volunteer, and I don't have any stake in the outcome.
Great. I just wanted that said. So thank you very much. The next is I have a fund called Hartford Balanced Income Fund. It's more, it's got international, it's got stocks, it's got bonds. It's kind of like the second option you presented here. And so it's got a little more earning potential. And one of the things going in and out of these is, are they front end loaded? Do you pay a lot up front to just own it, or not? That's a factor. And then do they have a minimum investment to even play in the game, or can you buy partial shares in a fund at any amount, like 10 grand or 50 grand, or do you have to have 100 grand to even get in? Some of them have limits.
Yeah, well, to answer your first question, these two funds that I'm recommending do not have any sales charge. It's a no load kind of fund. Good. And besides that, the management fee that's charged every year is extremely low. So yes, it's good in that respect.
All good answers, Richard. Thank you for bringing this to us.
And as far as the minimum goes, some of these funds do have a minimum. The minimum is like 3,000. So that's all it takes. Now,
we put more than that in there.
That's right. Now, in the case of the Wellesley Fund, there is sort of a break point at 50,000. If you invest that much, then the management fee goes down even lower. So
I'll disclose I have a vested interest in getting the remodel project fully finished, both phase 1 and phase 2. But hopefully we can get some more outside money to help complete phase 2. And we know that the bank account is going to go down by the amount that's already budgeted to spend on it. So, okay.
Well, so are you saying that the remodeling is going to cost more than 49K?
The remodeling is going to cost, that's for phase 1. Phase 2 will cost the same.
Are you kidding?
We have money to pay for part of phase 2 already in hand, and we hope to raise more through grant writing, the End Reach program next quarter, and other sources and appeals to fully fund the phase 2 part.
Well, yeah, I guess I was going by the minutes of the uh, con, meeting that happened last spring. So you're saying that by the time the remodeling is finished, it's going to be nearly double that?
Yes.
You're muted, Kimala.
Right. Initially, we talked about could we get it done for 50,000, and I mean that was before we had any kind of information from companies, and I know we bandied about could we do some of the work ourselves? You know, could it be a Cub Scout project? This, that, and the other. But with with COVID-19 especially, I don't think we're going to do any of the work ourselves.
Well, I guess
also was not clear exactly what we wanted, and we were, so we put together a Christmas list, and we had everything we wanted to do to the building on it. And then when we got to talking to architects, engineers, etc., it turned out to be a 2-phase project, each of which was about how much we had hoped to spend in total. They said, you guys are dreaming. It's never, you can't do everything you want to do for 50 grand. But you can enlarge the sanctuary for 50, and then you can do everything else you want to do to the building for another 50-ish, round figures. So that's sort of where we are. We probably have $65,000 in hand that's dedicated through grants or the budget for this project. So that is where I came up with the $35,000 extra to finish phase 2 that I referred to in my prior report, that I'm going to try to help us hustle up. Frankly.
Yeah, well, I guess.
But it does impact what you're thinking we have to invest.
It does, or
well,
it
I guess I should have been up on Zoom back when the congregational meeting happened, but so I was not in that meeting. So yeah, I'm just kind of.
We approved spending 50,000. That's all that's been approved by the congregation at this point. I'm telling you what we have learned later. It will cost to do what we wish to do in toto. So,
yeah, well, it just it sounds to me like that's a hell of a lot to sink into a property that we don't even own. But I guess that's not my decision to make.
well, we're locked into a lease for 4.5 more years, so it's where we're going to live for the foreseeable future. But I know.
I suppose, Richard, right, we could, we have talked about we need to give the congregation updates on the remodeling project. And it may, you know, I suppose the congregation could decide that as a group that we don't want to do a second phase.
And I think that needs to be addressed at the November congregational meeting.
Yeah.
To make sure everybody's fully apprised of what we've learned since the last one last May.
Because we'll have, do we hope to have contractor bids by the congregational meeting?
Oh yeah, hopefully. I expect to.
Yeah.
Well, so I guess what is the bottom line? How much do we have available to invest?
Well, first, so does everybody on the board agrees that it makes sense to take some of the money we have in a savings account that is not committed to the remodel and that wouldn't be a reserve and invest it in some way?
In general, yes, but I think this proposal for choosing between these two particular investment options is something that we need to take under advisement. We need to consult with amongst ourselves and with other people, like Eric Copeland, for example, if this is what he does for a living. And we need more information before we would proceed. So I am personally not prepared to vote yay or nay on this proposal today.
I think, well, Richard, do you see the proposal as deciding that we're going to invest in Wellesley Fund, or it's just starting the idea, right? The discussion of it.
Yeah, like I say in the document, that this is just for openers, just to get the ball rolling. So yeah, I was hoping that we would get some comments that might point us in a direction that we want to go. So yeah, I'm sure open to other suggestions, other funds that could be considered. So, but I guess my question now is just how much do we have to use for something or other? We don't know what we'll use it for, but I'm just asking how much can we estimate?
Not sure we know the answer to your question yet.
Okay.
Franklin, Beth, Lilybeth, and Nancy, what do you think?
I think it's a good idea to try to use the savings that we have to like get more return on that. But as far as picking a certain fund right now, I don't feel like we're at that stage yet. I think that we're just at the stage of deciding if that's something we want to do or just leave it in the savings account at the 1%.
Yeah, that's.
I feel like if we can decide on a fund that we feel comfortable with, I would be fine with taking a vote on that whenever that time comes to moving it. So to something that would give us a better percentage on our return.
Richard, to be fair to you, I think we need to do our due diligence and to have a plan put in place and have this also be on the agenda for the next congregational meeting. Because if we're going to take a fund that has any amount of risk whatsoever in our kind of church, I think it's important that people know what we're suggesting be done with the funds of the church. So we need to talk amongst ourselves, get some consultation with other people with financial knowledge, and then if there's other ones besides these two that we want to perhaps consider, consult with you on this since you brought it to us, but come up with something. And if the board has decided, yes, the board thinks this is a good idea, and we do have a fiduciary responsibility to the church to manage their finances and keep track of the money, then I think we put up the proposal to switch money from our savings account into whatever we agree to, if that's the outcome, at a congregational meeting to make sure we have full assent, just like we need to do for funding phase 2 of the construction project. I think putting both those ideas on the agenda for the next congregational meeting is probably the best way to make sure people aren't surprised and everybody's on board.
So who's going to take action, the actions that we're talking about here between now and then? Talking to Eric, etc. I just need for the minutes to know.
I'm willing to help and do it in concert with Kimmel, the treasurer, or Alec, or whoever else has an interest.
So I know we've you talked before about or you've suggested having a finance committee or steering committee. I mean, there's such a committee called that was people who took them past the basket for collections and then counted up the money. But that, to me, what we actually need is a committee of people like Richard who are actually thinking about what the money we have and how to be stewards of it. So maybe something that needs to come out of this then is actually officially, I think we call it the stewardship right now, but we actually create a committee, and I would ask Eric if he'd be part of it, as well as Richard. I would like you to be part of it and see if there might be another 1 or 2 people that want to be part of it for things like this, to work on this.
Yeah, we had talked about having a finance committee at one point. I used to have 2 CPAs on my finance committee that both had experience with nonprofits back when I had an agency. So,
well,
I think that's a good idea to have one. As you're the treasurer, you need to be the chair of it, and we need to get some people. And I think it's different. What we're talking about doing is a different thing than stewardship or the annual pledge. I mean, those are related and a piece of it, but this is bigger. This is all different idea.
And okay, so
Well, is there anything that you would like me to do in the meantime?
Stay in conversation with the people that have said that they would like to keep talking about this and looking into it. I being one of them. Kimla's obviously one of them.
Wait. Okay, stop. Please, sir. I mean it gently and lovingly. This is it's my section. Richard's doing a proposal. And
Okay.
also, you've got so much on your plate right now, Steve. I suggest, you're right. As I say, we established a finance committee. I got to be chair of it because I'm the treasurer. I suggest I would like Richard to be on the committee. I would like to ask Eric to be on the committee if you all agree. And I suggest we have maybe one or two other members of the congregation who seem like good or who have an interest or a good fit to be on this committee too. And then maybe with a goal of we come up with a more definite proposal and a number of mutual funds, I guess, to present at the November board meeting and then the congregational meeting afterwards. Does that sound, Richard, do you think that sounds doable in that time frame?
Well, I think I would recommend not presenting the whole congregation with a list of mutual funds. I think what you want to do is first the leadership should have a consensus and pick one fund.
Yeah,
and
that's what I'm thinking.
And you might even want to just do it without going to the congregation. But yeah, if you're going to go to the congregation, just provide them with one choice, either yes or no.
I mean, what do you think? Does the congregation need to vote on, do we put our money in a mutual fund? If we're, as the board, given the responsibility of managing the business of the congregation?
Yeah, I would say that this is sort of what I would call a technical decision. In really I think if the board comes to a consensus, I think that's going to be good enough. That's my opinion. Now, I'm not on the board, so it's not my decision to make.
I know, I'm looking at, y'all can't tell, I'm looking at Franklin, Lilybeth, Nancy, and Alec, because Steve has made clear his position.
I personally think it's exciting that looks like we may be in a financial situation to start investing. It's been a long time since we've had any kind of capital for that particular reason. I think we need to know where the congregation wants to go in the next 5 years before we start making that decision. Do we want to have a permanent building in 5 years? Do we want to have a minister in 5 years? I think those kind of financial decisions are not something we can vote on at this point. I think we're too early in the game. We have decided to remodel half of our area right now, to make deal with where we are in this moment. I think it's a little bit early to start having this conversation. I think it's a good conversation for the board to start thinking about, but without the response from the congregation about what their plans are, of what they want to do in 5 years, I think it's a little bit early. I think once we made that decision what direction we're going in, that we can enter this conversation. But it's a good idea for the board to be thinking about it, at least as a possibility.
I agree. I agree with Lilybeth. I think that the questions we're already posing in the survey about more general 5-year goals will, kind of guide us through what our savings is going to look like in the near future. And that's kind of the determinant on what kind of mutual fund we invest in. I think it makes perfect sense to take any capital that doesn't need to be particularly liquid and have it invested in giving a much better return than the joke of the savings account we currently have. But I don't think this financial health and political climate, we're going to know what kind of non-liquid capital we're going to have in the near future right now. So we shouldn't be trying to make a decision on where $50,000 of our money is going to go. There's just too many variables in the remodel, in the reoccupancy overall of the building. So I don't think we should be investing in a mutual fund until those questions are answered. And I think it's just going to take a little bit of time before we have good answers to those questions.
Suggesting we keep everything liquid until after the renovations are complete.
Yeah.
That's, I think, what I hear.
Yeah. And that'll probably line up with kind of moving back into the building. Do we still have 85 people there? Do we have a lower number? Do we have a larger number? If we gave it, 5 months, would we be able to see us having 50,000 to drop into a mutual fund and get those lower management fees versus not having 50,000? But I think at this point, it's just something we need to continue the conversation about, research the various mutual fund options, but recognize that we're not going to be having an actionable decision for a while longer.
And I don't even, I'll admit, when I read the proposal, I thought, of course we should be doing that. Why aren't we doing that? Why hadn't this already happened? But I don't know, either is 50,000 the right, or is 10,000 the place we start? How much is 22,000 in a reserve? Yeah, all those different things. But I think whatever we hold for a longer term, it makes sense to have it in something. If there's something better than a 0.01% savings account, we should do it. But okay, that makes sense to me too. What you and Lily better saying.
I would suggest, since we don't know now how much we have to invest, I think we ought to just postpone this committee until a later time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really wouldn't be doing much good at this point in time.
Yeah, if we had a fund sitting in a savings account with $20 million in it, of course, we should take a big chunk of that and put it in a mutual fund. But right now, we've got better savings than I think we have had in a very long time. We've got a bit of it earmarked, and then we've got a big question mark about, will we be able to retain the giving for the next 6 months, year of this weird COVID environment, or do we need to make sure to have that sitting there ready to pay our rent? Hopefully we're doing well. Hopefully it will continue that way, but it is a big question mark for the next year still. I mean, it's still a year before the vaccine might be out and enough people might be, there's a lot of question marks. And so I feel comfortable with what we've got. But the projections are, if our worst case scenario happens, with what we've got, we'll be able to pay all our bills for a year. But if we took 50,000 of that right now and tried to put it in a mutual fund, it'd be a bit difficult to get us out of it.
We'd lose money. Yeah, getting out of it.
That liquidity right now for that worst case scenario that none of us envision happening, but I think we all see as being necessary for the responsible stewardship to keep the wheels on the car, no matter what happens over this next year.
Okay, so how I hear it is that we're gonna table it until definitely after the survey is done and we come up with our strategic goals for the next 5 years. But I thank you very much. I think that's what we're all agreed on. Then, right, is hold off, and the board and our attendees hold off until after we decide on our strategic plan for the next 5 years. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, so then I want to say thank you very much, Richard, for bringing the proposal and then for being willing to present it yourself to us with all of our questions that you had to be ready to answer. And I hope that you will be ready to come back to this probably in the winter and the spring and help more.
Sounds good.
because you've got interest and passion, and we need that.
And you waited patiently through this long board meeting. Thank you.
World record.
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't think you're that good.
We still got 2 people to go. So do we want to call that closed on Kimala's part?
I
And
think
we
it's closed.
move on
Yeah.
to Franklin. The floor is yours.
Okay. So for Inquires class, we had 7 people who attended the Inquire class. This month, I reached out to find out about who wanted to sign up to be a member. I'm still waiting on, there's 2 of the people who decided they're gonna wait. They're not gonna sign up yet. And then there's 2 right now, or 3 right now that are gonna go ahead and with the ceremony and sign up to be a member. And right now we're waiting on 2 more responses to find out if they're gonna sign up to be members, and then if we're gonna do a Zoom meeting for the ceremony for them. I have 3 members who have committed to do the in-person ceremony for the new membership. So I'll have an update for that when we have our next meeting. And if we do have the in-person, that will take place on the 27th of this month. For that service is when we'll have the ceremony for the new members. And I should have confirmation by this week of the 2 people that I'm remaining that I need to reach out to and get something back from them.
Maybe if they know it's going to be outside, they'll feel differently about attending in person.
I think I just have to call them because I sent an email and I haven't gotten a response yet. So I think once I call them this week, I should know for sure.
Frankly, you said you heard back from 3, right?
Yes.
And they're willing to come in person already,
Yes.
right?
Yes,
So
they
as
are.
far as I'm concerned, we're going to have, someone disappeared. But anyhow, I'm going to be ready to have the in-person happen in front of Pathways on the 27th. If it's just the 3, that's great. If one of them drops off and it's just 2, that's great too. People will be able to, if the other 2 confirm, but they don't want to show up, we can join them in through Zoom. But I do want to make sure that technically we're committed to that portion of the service happening in person. We might do music live in person. I might just play a video. Depends on, I haven't worked that out yet, but I do think it's, good to put it on the books that portion, at least in part, will happen live, because I think it excites people.
New members.
Yeah, and that's what I'm communicating when I reach out, is that we're doing a live ceremony that will be broadcast as part of the service.
Perfect. Cool.
And you have a big part of it, Alec, now that you're president.
That's right. I do have to, I'll be a part of it, but I'll also
Half the
make sure.
script is you, yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's minor in work I have to do. I'm happy to do that, but the tech stuff will happen. Liz will still join us via Zoom to give the message, but there will be a portion of the service done live in front of the building. So as we promote this, people can feel free to join like they did last week, socially distance outside the building with us.
And Beth, I'll need your help with this, and Kimla as well, as we put this ceremony together, because I've participated in this ceremony, but I've not actually conducted one. So I'll reach out to you this week to go over that, to make sure.
Yeah, it's super easy. And back to the ceremony.
Franklin, I don't know if I got the numbers. I've forgotten. How many people did we have in person? And how many people do we have on Zoom when we actually did the class?
Okay, in person we had 3. We had 3 in person, and then we had 4 on the Zoom.
Okay. I think it's interesting to keep track of, in terms of people who attend the Inquires class, how many actually become members. And
I'm tracking all the information. I'm keeping track of all the information.
So
how I was going to ask how we used to have that membership list on the Google Drive, and there would be, are we still using that? And you'd put who did Inquires class or who did, and then people's date when they join, or are we using something different now?
If there's that information's on the drive already, I'll go ahead and fill it in on the drive, whatever spreadsheet we have in there. right now I just have the information in my email. So
Okay.
I can go ahead and add it to the information that's in the drive.
All right.
I'll
Okay.
do that this week. I'll update it. And if there's not if it's not in there, then I'll just create a spreadsheet and put it in there and fill in with the information.
Hey, Franklin, Luke, I know this for a different reason, took what was on the Google Drive in the membership list and tried to import it into Breeze. And he has a membership list out of Breeze now. So you might want to also touch base with him and see where he's at with that and how it relates to the membership list on the Google Drive.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a place in there for this stuff or not.
That's another part of what I'm going to share about here, because as far as the tracking, Nancy, I reached out to Teresa this week, and I spoke to her about the attendance and how she's tracking the attendance, and she's tracking everything on a spreadsheet. And I saw Nancy sent out the spreadsheet to us. I've reviewed it, and it shows the common ground, but there's not a spot for identifying new members, people who are newly joining pathways through the Zoom meeting. So that's something that I know we talked about, and I haven't created a slide, but I am going to try to get to that this week and create a slide so that we can have it in the service to just inform whenever somebody comes to the service that there'll be a notification saying that if you're new, please contact, I'll put my information so they can contact me so I can gather the information and then reach out to them as needed. But I think I was supposed to have done that already, but I just haven't gotten to it yet. So that I'll make sure I have that in for the next service for the slide. And then we'll also, in the newsletter, I'm not sure what's in the Richard, are you there? Do you, who's putting the newsletter together now?
I am.
Do we have a spot for new members to contact?
Excuse me?
Is there information in the newsletter for someone to contact if they are new?
Don't believe so. No.
For a visitor, you mean?
Yeah, a visitor. I'm sorry, I said member. Yeah.
Oh, they're at the bottom. At the very bottom, there's a contact email for the office, but but no real proper announcement in the body that for people interested or whatever. I don't think there's a real place where that's. You can look at the last email and look at the very bottom to see the contact information, but it's just under list of contacts. So if you'd like to write up something short, it can go in this week with the link. Would it be a link to your email?
It can be, yes. I probably prefer it that way, just so it'd be easier for me to keep track of it instead of it going somewhere.
That would be, I think that would be best if it's your email address. And we'll just make a separate column. If you put it in announce, this week, Beth and our new editor, Jennifer's doing her first newsletter this week, and Beth is helping her do it this week. So they will get it in.
Okay, I'll do that.
Do you think we should put in something in the newsletter too, saying that about having the new member ceremony in case there's anyone who's already taken the Inquirers class but hadn't chosen to join yet?
I think that should certainly go in as an announcement for the new member ceremony.
Because there probably are people who took it in the past. but I don't know.
I see what you're saying. Members who've taken the class, but they never signed up and they might be interested in doing that. Okay, I'll add that to my note. Okay. This week I'm going on to the Breeze. We talked about trying to get more information into Breeze to make it easier for our members to stay connected. I'm gonna meet with Luke this week to go over how we can put because right now I know we are putting Teresa said that we are putting the attendance information into Breeze, but I think Luke is the only one doing it. And he sent me a text saying that he's willing to train. He would actually like to train a few other people so that there are other people who can actually do it besides just him. So I'll train with him this week on how to get that information from Teresa's spreadsheet into the Breeze. So that way we can have the attendance information. So if we need to run any kind of reporting, we can have it in there. And then maybe from there we can also track if we have new visitors that are coming in to the services, that we can see if they're how we can reach them and contact them best. Because I know some people that they're not, like we said, people are not checking their emails, and some people check text, and some people prefer to be called. And I did talk to Luke about that, and he thought there was an option that way we can identify for each person in there how they would prefer to be contacted, to be given information that needs to go out to each member.
And then you could sort them, like if you're sorting who needs text and who needs, I don't know, does Breeze have sorting mechanisms? So you could pull up everyone who needs a text and everyone who needs it mailed.
I'll be able to confirm once we get the information in there, what kind of options we have when I meet with Luke this week to go over that. So in the next meeting, I'll have a full update on what options we have available for Breeze, and then what restrictions we want to put on there to make sure that the information that's being seen when I go in there to search someone, what information I'm seeing about them. Because there is a question on there about the contact information, because yes, if I go into, it's kind of one of the reasons why we want Breeze, is so that the congregation can have access to other members of the congregation. So having an email and a telephone number is in there. But if somebody doesn't want that information shared, then we need to have a way of blocking it so that it's not seen.
So Breeze hasn't been rolled out. Sorry, Nancy, go ahead. I'll wait.
Oh, I was just going to say, I looked, the first time I went into Breeze, I went in there and I saw people who visited, and all their contact information is surfaced. I mean, so that anyone can see it. I don't think people visit us one time and give us their email address so they can get the newsletter. They're not really signing up so that everyone in the congregation can see all their personal information. So I think there's a big database issue here with what we surface to who can see it, who can't see it. And certainly there's a need for the membership committee to see those visitors' information, but not for everybody in the congregation to see it. So I'm an old database person, so I want there to be views, and I want there to be a data cleanup and ways to control this.
So does that mean Breeze has not been rolled out to the whole congregation yet?
It has been.
It has been.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
all I see on Breeze are people, and when I look at the list of people, there are 589 people, of which 90% of them I've never heard of before. And I don't understand what's going on. I gave a photo to Luke months ago, and my photo's not even up there, and I can't add my own photo. I think.
Well, that's too bad.
So it sounds like we need a better. I think Luke just needs help managing Breeze, and so I'll find out from Luke exactly what he needs help with as far as managing, because I know there are updates that he's wanting to do, and he hasn't gotten to it yet. So maybe once I have the meeting with Luke, I can find out what exactly he needs help with to make sure that Breeze is the way that we want it to be. But that's the other thing. I guess if you can send me information on, you guys are bringing up these topics, and I think that's important. So when I meet with Luke, if you can just send me an email if any concern you have that you want me to address with him, then I can address that to make sure. So I'll definitely put down here that we need to address how visitor information is displayed and how we can restrict that information so that everyone doesn't have access to it.
I'm not 100% sure how Breeze works. I played with it a little bit, but it seems like we all have the same user permission level, and it should hopefully be able to break up users into multiple permission levels. And we'd need like an admin that's God, then like a maybe either board level or finance committee, people that need everyone's information. They know not to blast it out everywhere. And then a common user who would have access to members whose information is already published in our little booklet with everyone's contact information. That would be a digital version of that. And then on the other side of things, for us more advanced users, we would then need folders of people who prefer their contact via email, folders for people who prefer their contact via text message, and I guess people that prefer a traditional phone call. So then when we put out email blasts or text message blasts through Breeze, we just select that folder for recipients and hit send or schedule to send on that. I'll send an email to you for queries for Luke that pretty much include those things.
Okay.
And also, what about access for people who want to, I mean, we've been talking about putting our numbers for all our groups straight into Breeze so that anyone who leads a group, instead of sending their information to Teresa, would go into Breeze and put their number, their attendance numbers in there.
Mhm.
So I really would like us to get there where everything is in one place and we're not maintaining spreadsheets here and there, and then you get inconsistent data and you have this spreadsheet and this spreadsheet, and who knows if they're consistent. So, and that means that you need an access control for updating and edit capability so people can put in numbers. So I don't know enough about Breeze to know how that's done, but surely there's a way we can do that so that, Laura Lee can just go in there and put in how many people came into On My Path, or Steve can go in there and put in how many people came to his group. And again, though, I don't know how you total, how you do totaling.
Okay, so I have several things here. Okay. The other thing, when we have the, far as the booklet for the, our directory, did we send out a consent? Do we have to have did we get a consent from each person before we put them in the directory? Before? Do we need to do that if we're gonna put people's information in Breeze that everyone can access?
We get written consents.
I don't remember is it part of when we sign it, when you register as a member that your information will be added to the directory, or did we send out notification or anything?
I
remember being asked for new information in advance of the last paper published version, and I don't recall about the permissions part. Was Marty Kosmersky involved in that production? She might know.
I don't think we do a written consent.
Okay, so
we used to do that, didn't we, Beth? Really, Beth, didn't we used to do ask people for permission? I think we quit doing that at some point.
We did quit sometime. We did do it a long time ago. We did have consent not only for being information included, but also for your photo being taken, that sort of thing. I think the RE people may have that for the kids, but as adults, I don't think we have anything in place right now. Marty worked on the directory for the last several years, and would know whether or not consent was required to be included.
I don't think there was a sign thing, but I think there was if you want to put your name in there, give us your information.
Okay.
Sign any papers.
Might be a lot more informal.
Okay, so we could probably do the same thing then with Zoom, where we can just, the person's name would be there, but there wouldn't be any contact information.
until they choose to provide it
Yes.
in an informed consent way.
Okay. I'll make sure I bring that up as well with Luke, if there's a way that if somebody decides they don't want their information listed in in the Breeze app, if we can do we have to just leave out their name completely, or can we have them in the directory but not have their phone number and email and information like that showing, or address showing? Data restriction.
And again, the data should be there. The question is whether or not it should be visible, who it should be visible to. I mean, if they're a member or a friend, we want their data in there, but they may not want everybody to see it. So there should be a view that includes people that want to be seen. And that's what we see when we go in there.
Okay.
I bet we could, Luke would be happy for us to recruit an IT member to take on Breeze, or maybe a team of IT people.
Back to that ITAC committee.
Yeah.
Same discussion.
It needs more than one member.
Yes.
That's all I have for my part. The main thing, it looks like it's really just figuring out what we're going to do with Breeze, how we're going to use it, and how we're going to use it effectively to track data, but also keep people's privacy.
Thank you, Franklin.
Thank you. So it's my turn.
Guess so. You're last on the agenda.
Yes, Nancy, all yours.
Mine's going to be fast. Beth Cusack contacted me with a couple of questions, like, do we want to have a board meeting on February 14th? I think she was looking ahead in the calendar and realized that would be the second Sunday in February. And also in March, second Sunday is the beginning of spring break. So that's looking kind of far ahead, but that's a good question. I mean, those, to me, it's fine to meet those days, but I don't know about the rest of you.
Not an issue for me.
Not a problem for me, either of them.
No issue for me.
I don't think it'll be a problem for this. It's a Sunday. I mean, I haven't gone anywhere for that. I don't think the kids and I are going to go somewhere for spring break, so I think I should be fine.
Okay. Nobody's has a big sweetheart trip planned for the 14th. Okay.
Not yet.
Big Valentine's. Maybe she was thinking Valentine's that we would all.
Yeah, we love
Not 11:30 in the morning.
Okay, so as far as an RE update, I don't really have anything. I mean, I think everybody heard what's going on with RE at our service today. And,
it was wonderful, wonderful presentation by everybody.
Yeah, I really thought that all our presentations were wonderful. And in terms of, I mean, we're kind of just getting a lot of things rolling right now. It's been very slow for Tink, so I know Franklin is helping her, but she really hasn't had participation from anybody except the youth group. She's sending out resources to the other kids and their families, but I'm not sure if they're doing anything with them. So I guess the question we really do have to think about is, do we want to keep hammering away at this if nobody is participating during this time when we're not meeting? You know, do we continue to have Tink even though nobody wants to participate? I'm not suggesting any changes today. It's just something to think about. I mean, as far as our adult activities, we have great participation, lots of people signing up for everything.
Nancy?
Big part is our kids.
Just a quick thought, Nancy.
Yeah.
If you've got parents who are having to instruct their children at home during this issue, Monday through Friday, the last thing they probably want to do with their small children is to deal with something on Sunday morning.
I agree, and I mean, it wouldn't have to be Sunday morning, but still.
Yeah.
I want to
Terms of
speak to this.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm working with Tink on this as well, and I have two kids because Addison, it fits into the youth group, and then Myra fits into the younger group. And Tink sent out the information, and I read in the group chat that she has for all the parents. And I went in there and saw that she sent the information. It was good information, but I didn't really get a chance to actually even review the information with my kids. And so I'm struggling with it to just even make time. And so it really makes me question, like I had to stop and ask myself, oh, how important is this to me and to my family, like to my children? Is there a reason why this is important? I did kind of answer that for myself, that it is important. There are certain things that I want my children to learn about being in a community and functioning in relationship like that, that I think is really important. There are things I want them to learn about spirituality that I think will help them as they grow. But it's like, okay, so I know that's important, but I have to make it a priority. And I think that's where I'm struggling. I'm assuming the other parents are struggling with that as well, is how to make it a priority. And then I also think, well, okay, if it's difficult, how much of a part of our congregation does it need to be? And if it is very important to us, because I think it is important, because I mean, our children are going to be the ones that take up where we left off in their own way. It's like, how do we figure out a way of making it viable where we're actually getting the participation? And I really don't know. I'm hoping that after we go through the survey, we might get some feedback that will help us figure out how to get the parents, because I'm saying I'm even struggling with it as well.
Maybe once a month instead of every Sunday.
That's what I was just thinking. And maybe she mentioned the once a month meeting in person. Maybe that's what you do in a park or whatever, especially for the younger kids.
Okay, so yeah, we'll encourage Tink to take that route to really try to meet once a month in person for, I don't know, have a picnic with the younger kids or something, and we'll try to be supportive of her. I just, yeah, I think it's going to be an issue until we're back together again.
Yeah, I think so too. It is hard.
Yeah.
Is there a way that we can utilize the in-person services that we'll be having on a somewhat regular basis going forward to really push that kind of attendance in a meeting that occurs soon afterwards? So I guess it would both bring kids to the common ground service as well as maybe bring them in just period. Are there things we can do, integrate into that common ground service to draw the kids in with the hopes of retaining them through some kind of in-person RE class afterwards? Would music help? Michael was able to help out last week, but if we, focused on something to bring the kids into the service, would that possibly help Tink create something for the kids to participate in on their own afterwards?
Sounds like a good idea. Sounds like a lot of thought needs to go into that, creativity.
We really just need feedback. I'm hoping the survey will help, because we really just need feedback from the parents to know what they can do, what do they have the bandwidth to do, and what do they really want. I guess I should go back and see all the questions. Were there questions in there about RE on the survey?
Steve?
A little bit, not
A little bit.
specifically that I recall.
But we have a group.
Go ahead, Frank.
We do have a group chat with all the parents listed, so it might be easier for us to get responses from them that way.
I was very taken with Tink's presentation this morning. It made me want to volunteer for the Crossing Paths youth part on different religions as a volunteer, even though I don't have any kids in the program. So it was effective in terms of the outreach aspect. I know we got her some training on a developmentally appropriate, I forgot the name of it, something play, active play, some kind of
Spirit play.
spirit play, thank you. That might help a little bit on the fact that Zoom is so impersonal and not concrete for the very young ones, the preschoolers. And then we have the new curriculum that we purchased that we haven't implemented yet for the the youth group. So maybe that'll help boost attendance when we roll out some of the new curricula that she's got, but we haven't really started using yet. So maybe that'll help.
We didn't even have very many parents there today in our service. I think Franklin and Sandy, and I can't think of anybody else that was there that was actually a parent. So it's just a problem.
Yeah.
A comment, a quick comment from here.
Okay.
I would like to see more talks by children. There are other churches who have regular talks in their regular service by children, and whatever their appropriate level is for speaking, and then over the years they become very accustomed to speaking and relating to other people.
And actually, we used to have some of our youth to be service leaders. And I know Lilybet will remember that, Meryl Gunter's girls did that, and a lot of other of our youth. So I would like to see our youth do that, because that's just a great experience at getting up in front of people. And that, for leading a service, you have a script. It's not like they have to make up anything, but it gives them that experience with leadership. So I'll mention that to Tink, and maybe she can encourage some of our youth to do that.
Thank you.
But you're right. I think of one of the last new members who joined had two lovely children, and that particular member I haven't seen in any of the Zoom meetings. So I wonder, about the parents with children and what they're, if any of them are really able to participate.
I mean, we are contacting all those parents. They're getting emails. I don't know if Tink is calling them, but
yeah,
I'm not sure exactly who you're talking about, but I think we've been trying to reach out to them. Yeah.
Oh, no, I didn't mean to imply not. In that case, maybe it's just being so new, that feeling of needing us hadn't developed yet.
All right.
So.
Okay, so what else? Numbers reporting. I think we talked about Teresa is trying to do that as best she can, and keeping them in a spreadsheet. And the other thing that Beth Cusack requested is, she said that there's a need for a board liaison to the weekly newsletter team. And she suggested that Lilybet might be a good person for that, since Lilybet has done the newsletter in the past.
Yes, I have. I'll talk to Beth about that and see what it is she's actually.
That was one of the questions I was going to raise, and one of the reasons I set in here was that there are three of us on the newsletter and team, and we have decided that between the three of us, we can operate just fine as a team without somebody as like a chief editor or anything. We work pretty well, but there are occasions in my experience over the last more than a year, where we need to go to somebody on the board to find out if a particular thing is proper and desirable, or if we should drop it, emphasize it. There are those occasions, not too many of them, but we do need a point of contact for those things. And the liaison person then would be that point of contact, I guess.
I'll be glad to do that, and I'll contact Kuzak and get a more clear information about what's expected. I mean, I don't want to be a super editor, believe me.
No, that's not when Becky was.
Yeah, yeah, I understand.
That's not. She just happened to be an editor also, but we generally did. Whenever we had to consult with Becky, it was just like I mentioned. We talked to Becky as a board member, not as a chief editor.
Okay.
And to just make sure what we're putting in doesn't get out of bounds.
Okay. I would be glad to accept that if there's no objection from anyone else or anyone else wants the job.
You go.
Yeah.
Hey,
Thank
hey,
you.
Richard, who are the three? I don't know who the three people that you do the newsletter are right now. You and who else?
There's myself, Beth Cusack, and we have a new person who volunteered to come on the newsletter team, and that is Jennifer Bosley. And
Great.
Beth is doing the same thing I did with Beth when she came on, over the phone, doing her first newsletter over the phone with Beth on one end and Jennifer on the other end, working through it. OJT is the best. We have procedures, but OJT is the best way to do it.
Jennifer will be good. She's been on the development committee with me for a year or two. She'll be really good. So I'm glad she did this.
Is the newsletter being created by Breeze now?
Excuse me?
Is the newsletter being created in Breeze?
Yes,
Okay.
totally. We're in Breeze all the time. We see all the contact information with the lists, all of that. We're all I guess Beth and I are pretty familiar with Breeze by now, and it's not like vertical response. Vertical response was good and bad. Breeze is good and bad.
Okay.
We can't back things up in Breeze. If Breeze hiccups and loses something, it's gone. So we have workarounds for things like that. But we do need another editor, one more. We feel we've been operating with 4 newsletter editors for like a year. And then we dropped down to 2, and now we're back to 3. We really would like to find another one. If anyone has possibilities or know of someone who needs a job, see if you can promote that. Would be appreciated.
All right, Nancy, does that wrap up the items on this portion of the agenda?
Before you adjourn, I have a concern about the Google Drive.
Okay.
I'm on the board now and I don't know that everything's being shared with me on the Google Drive as a board member, and I'm not sure who does that and how that happens.
I'll get you in on everywhere.
Okay.
Except for finance,
Except for
right?
finance, yeah. So I'll check to make sure
Okay.
you've got.
I get finance, and Richard Marshall has access to finance.
And there's a couple other people, and then I'm admin, so I have everything. But we've got one called Pathways Full Drive, and that's not actually the full drive. That's everything but financial. But we call it full drive because it's just easier.
That
And
makes
so
sense.
I'll make sure we've got that.
That's under the Google Drive. That's a Google Drive. The Pathways Full Drive is a Google Drive.
Yes.
That's on our Google Drive.
Okay.
And I'm going to add ecwatson@gmail.com to the permissions of that right now.
All right. Thank you.
Boom. Sent. Okay, does anyone else have any off-agenda items before we motion for adjournment? Going once, going twice. Sold. All right, I motion for this board meeting to be adjourned. Do I have a second?
Yes, I second.
All right, awesome. Kimball, when do you want to go up to church?
I want to eat lunch first.
Okay, I'm going to go eat a thing at Dino's, and I'll see you up there in a while.
Okay, about an hour.
Yeah, whatever. I'll be there.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Y'all have a good one.
Thank you.
Yes, everybody.
Bye,
Good to see
everyone.
you.
Bye.
Bye.